Our story kicks off in the beautiful and bustling Tongzhou City. Today, the streets were jam-packed, all because of a special announcement. Right in the city's heart, a notice was posted on a massive pillar announcing that Princess Li Qing He's wedding to Zhou Dian is tomorrow. The notice detailed how Qin Yue of the Qin clan had risked his life in the great wilderness, saving the Zhou family in the process. This act was hailed as a monumental service to the imperial court. However, the notice tragically added that Qin Yue is now in such a critical state that his survival is impossible, and therefore his engagement to the princess is being annulled. The crowd gathered there was stunned by this news. People began whispering among themselves, questioning how Li Qing He could marry someone else so soon. They wondered if she had already forgotten Qin Yue's sacrifice. It brought back memories of that fateful time when two great warriors of the Qin family were slain in the forest. And Qin Yue, once the greatest genius and swordsman in all of Tongzhou, was left crippled in a single night. Some in the crowd expressed their disbelief, pointing out that it hasn't even been a month yet the princess is already preparing to marry. In response, others explained that the groom-to-be is Zhou Dian, the heir of an immortal family. They reasoned that no woman would turn down such a match, and the crowd began discussing how perfect the two of them were for each other. This public display was meant to showcase their benevolence, but the crowd had no clue about the disgusting game being played behind the scenes. What they perceived as a noble gesture was nothing but a sham. Now the scene shifts to the Qin family mansion. Inside an inner room of the mansion, Qin Yue lay on his bed, half dead. The battle in the wilderness had completely shattered him. Suddenly, two people entered his room with malicious intent. It was Zhou Dian and Li Qing He. The moment he entered, Zhou Dian began to mock Qin Yue's condition. He started rubbing salt in the wound, tauntingly reminding Qin Yue how he was once the pride of the city. He recounted how at the age of 3, Qin Yue had already achieved the perfect cultivation route. At 9, he reached the post-Haotian realm, and by 18, he was on the verge of the spiritual realm. As he said this, Zhou Dian suddenly grabbed Qin Yue by the throat. Looking deep into Qin Yue's eyes, he gloated, making him realize that his meridians were shattered. His mind was barely functioning. He was now just a living corpse. Meanwhile, Zhou Dian had become the hero who supposedly ventured into the forest alone and saved everyone. With a devilish grin, he added that he would now be marrying Qin Yue's fiancée. Man, this guy's just asking for a beatdown. This rat couldn't do a thing when our hero was at full power, but now he's acting all tough. I guess this is what they call an opportunist. Then Li Qing He finally broke her silence, revealing her true colors. She proudly declared that royal blood flows through her veins and that she was born to rule the world. She spat that the Qin family were nothing more than lapdogs to the royal family, and her father had been forced into the engagement. She screamed that they were no better than pets, and a cripple like Qin Yue was never worthy of a grand princess like her, and he never will be. Then she revealed a devastating secret. She told him that the deaths of his relatives Qin Zhen and Qin Hang were no accident. It was their doing. They were the ones who had crippled him in a single night, Li Qing. He then draped herself over Zhou Dian, placing his hand on her chest and declaring that they were the perfect couple. A strong man and a beautiful woman, Zhou Dian looked at her with hungry eyes, saying that even though the wedding was tomorrow, he would make her completely happy tonight. Then the two of them left the helpless Qin Yue, laughing loudly as they went. Wow, this lady has absolutely no shame. Wiped out his entire family while pretending to love him. Seriously, you wouldn't wish an ex like that on your worst enemy. You guys be careful out there too. As soon as they left, something strange happened in the room. A golden light began to emanate from Qin Yue's broken body. It flared to life, and in the dark corners of his mind, a demonic voice echoed, asking him if he wanted to live. Before his very eyes, dazzling rays of light enveloped him. The roars of ferocious beasts from the wilderness echoed in his mind. An ancient scroll materialized in the air, opening to reveal the imprisoned power of 108 divine beasts. That power now began to surge into Qin Yue. Once again, the voice returned, challenging Qin Yue to show the patience and passion of the true Qin Yue. And just like that, folks, the game is about to change. It's only when a man loses everything that he finds his true power. The real fun is about to start. Hey villains, you better pack your bags. Following the voices echoing in his mind, Qin Yue's eyes suddenly shot open. He scrambled to sit up in bed. The first thing he did was throw off the blanket to check his body. When he saw his own healthy hands, he began to tremble uncontrollably. The only thought racing through his mind was, what is all this? Am I really back? As the realization hit him, he clutched his head. A wave of grief for his father and grandfather washed over him. A deep gnawing regret ate at him from the inside. If fate was going to send him back, why not a little sooner? If only he had returned just a bit earlier, his father and grandfather would still be alive. A flame of rage born from this regret ignited within him. He stood up, his entire body glowing as hatred for Zhou Dian and Li Qing He boiled in his heart. He began to remember his past life, how that wretched couple had worked together to frame the Qin family. They murdered his father, and grandfather left him a cripple, and after all that, they shamelessly celebrated their wedding. This celebration was just a desperate attempt to salvage the last scraps of the Qin family's dignity, a dignity that might as well be buried 6 feet under. Qin Yue recalled waking up at this exact moment in his past life, unable to handle the shock. In a blind rage, he had stormed their wedding, marching right up to the ceremonial pavilion. But there that dog, Zhou Dian, publicly humiliated him, beating him, and trampling him underfoot in front of everyone, making a complete spectacle out of him. Afterward, bleeding and broken, Qin Yue was left for dead, tossed into the great wilderness where he writhed in agony. He had lost all hope of survival. But then Li Qing, his younger sister, found and saved him. She tirelessly nursed him day and night, pulling him back from the brink of death. 10 years later, Qin Yue discovered a great power within the wilderness and finally awakened his abilities. But fate had a cruel twist in store. King He found them there as well, and in an act of retribution, he captured Li Qing. She was tortured to death with unspeakable brutality. What did that poor girl do to deserve that? All she did was help someone in need. Villains like them deserve a special place in hell. Wounded and broken-hearted, Qin Yue swore that he would avenge Li Qing and her family. Once he became a supreme being, he set out to hunt down the two who had wronged him. By that time, however, King He had become the ruler of the entire realm, and Zhou Dian was the leader of the immortal clan. In the end, Qin Yue himself was obliterated in the Battle of the Great Wilderness. But now, in this new life, Qin Yue swore to himself that he would repay his blood debt with their blood. He possessed a treasure from the Great Wilderness, the Wilderness Haven Scripture, and this was no ordinary tome. It contained 108 ancient demonic beasts and 72 divine beasts. Using his divine power, Qin Yue opened the scripture in midair. He chose an ancient divine beast with the body of a dragon and the head of a wolf, a dragon's body and a wolf's head. That's one next-level beast. Now Zhou Dian is totally screwed. It's time to tear it all down. He opened his eyes and shouted, "Arise, Gyrus." In the blink of an eye, the shadow of Gyrus materialized. The moment it appeared, a terrifying killing aura filled the air, and the beast bowed its head respectfully to its master Qin Yue. A sacred flame began to emanate from his body. Gyrus's power began to transform Qin Yue's body from the inside out. His bones and meridians grew so strong that he successfully broke through to the divine communication realm. Now the real fun begins. The guy they all wrote off as trash is making a comeback, and he will be their doom. As he was contemplating this, he heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Qin Yue was both startled and enraged. He looked back. An old man stood there, the panic in his eyes plain to see. Upon entering, he asked, "Qin Yue, are you finally awake?" With difficulty, Qin Yue pushed himself up from the bed and sat on the edge. He gritted his teeth and glared at the old man. This old man was none other than Qin Shan, an elder of the Qin family. Qin Yue knew exactly who he was. This was the same man who had betrayed his father. He used to call him brother, Qinchas, but behind his back he conspired with King He. This very traitor was the one who first sent him to the great wilderness. Then he became Zhou Dian's lapdog and led the entire Qin family to ruin. Folks with relatives like these who needs enemies. The traitor, Qin Shan, stood in the room scrutinizing him carefully. He breathed an inward sigh of relief, thinking, thankfully the boy's meridians are completely withered. He's utterly useless now. Qin Yue just sat there, his eyes fixed on the old dog, watching his little performance. Then Qin Shan bared his crooked teeth and began to laugh loudly. He mocked Qin Yue, scoffing at how yesterday he was a great prodigy on a divine pedestal, and today he was nothing but useless trash. He taunted him, asking, "How does it feel to fall so far? It must be terrible, right?" Qin Yue glared daggers at him. He stared at the man, thinking to himself, "A dog will always be a dog." He wanted to make Qin Shan understand that a dog won't hesitate to switch masters. Qin Yue cut him off, saying that even if he was weak now, this old traitor had no right to humiliate him. Hearing this, Qin Shan flew into a rage. He waved his hands dismissively and shouted at Qin Yue to shut his mouth. He spat that he had served the family with complete loyalty. But what did he get in return? He then placed all the blame squarely on Qin Yue. He claimed it was all Qin Yue's fault that the others were killed. Then he proudly declared that from now on, the Qin family belonged to him, Qin Shan. At that, Qin Yue slowly rose to his feet. Years of pent-up anger and hatred were clearly etched on his face. His eyes, now brimming with killing intent, stared straight at Qin Shan. Qin Yue slowly advanced on the beast of a man. His entire being radiated a fearsome aura, a clear sign that someone's death was imminent. Meanwhile, old man Qinshan was still running his mouth, cursing Qin Yue and insisting it was all his fault. With his eyes and mouth wide, he barked that today he would personally send Qin Yue to hell. He even confessed, saying, "After you're dead, you can tell Qin Heng that the one who killed him was none other than me, Qinshan." But before he could utter another word, Qin Yue's hand shot out and clamped around the wretched man's throat. Qinshan's face looked like a crowing rooster that had suddenly been snatched by the neck. Showing no mercy, Qin Yue slammed Qinshan into the ground with all his strength. Boom! It was a satisfyingly brutal takedown. The impact was so powerful that the ground cracked and shattered, sending splashes of blood everywhere. Qinshan's throat was in agony. He was being choked, and as he tried to speak, only a strangled gasp escaped his lips. As those gurgling sounds sputtered out, Qin Yu's eyes burned with pure hatred. Baring his teeth in a twisted smile, he sneered, "In the end, a dog is just a dog. And when a dog bites its master, there's only one consequence: death." With those words, Qin Yu made his final move, twisting Qinshan's neck with a sickening crack. With that final brutal act, Qinshan's spirit left his body. And just like that, Qin Yu proved who was really in charge. After eliminating the traitor, Qin Yue donned the old Qin family battle armor, preparing to finally get his revenge. As he strode out of the house, he bellowed a promise that he was coming for that treacherous couple. Leaving the old traitor's twisted corpse behind, he set off on his path of vengeance. You gotta admit, our boy Qin Yu did the right thing. That's exactly what traitors deserve. Now the scene shifts to the Divine Sword Dynasty's luxurious and glittering capital city, where the royal palace was on complete lockdown. Security was tight, ensuring that only the most important guests could attend the wedding. After all, this wasn't just any ordinary marriage. It was the wedding of those two backstabbers, Zhou Dian and Li Qing He. You could see the fear plain as day on the faces of the guards on duty. One guard nervously whispered to another, "Do you have any idea who the groom is?" The shaky reply came back, "He's from the Immortal Clan, a terrifyingly powerful group." Overhearing their chatter, the captain of the guards became furious. He roared at them to cut the gossip and stand their posts, warning that the consequences would be severe if they didn't. Hearing his threat, the guards immediately snapped to attention. Man, if the guards are this terrified, just imagine what kind of monster the groom must be. Little do they know the real VIP is about to make an appearance. His grand entrance is just moments away. A little later, the scene shifts inside the royal palace, where a group of maids is gently escorting the princess to her chambers. After finishing the room's decorations, an elderly maidservant respectfully announced their arrival. Inside Li Qing, he was seated before a mirror. She was putting the finishing touches on her makeup, already clad in a stunning wedding gown, with a look of triumphant joy on her face. As soon as the old maid entered, she bowed politely and announced that the auspicious time had arrived. It was time to head to the main hall. Hearing this, Li Qing He's face lit up with a devilish glint in her eyes. She was practically vibrating with eagerness to get the ceremony started. Outside the wedding procession, music began. The bride Li Qing He and the groom Zhou Dian started their slow walk forward. The couple approached the old emperor of the Divine Sword Dynasty, Li Qing He, and knelt before him to pay their respects. Seated upon his golden throne, Emperor Li Qian, he looked at Zhou Dian and announced that he was now entrusting his daughter, Li Qing He, to him. With great respect, Zhou Dian bowed his head. He then took Li Qing. His hand looked deeply into her eyes and lovingly promised that he would never betray her as long as he lived. But before he could even finish his pack of lies, the entire atmosphere suddenly shifted. A sharp spear carried on a sudden powerful gust of wind came hurtling from out of nowhere. With a deafening boom, the massive city gate shattered and collapsed as if it were made of paper. The guards stationed there were sent flying backward screaming as the sheer force of the blast overwhelmed them. Seeing his grand celebration so violently interrupted, the old Emperor Li Qian, he was absolutely furious. He paled and roared, "Who has the audacity to disrupt this ceremony?" Li Qing. He, terrified by the explosion, frantically looked around, while Zhou Dian was already soaked in a cold sweat. His eyes darted about in panic as he shrieked, "Who's there?" You could hear a pin drop. "Looks like the party has officially started. The groom is shaking in his boots and the emperor is about to have a heart attack. Now that's what I call a grand entrance. Let the real show begin. Aren't you going to give our hero a proper welcome?" Piercing through the billowing dust, the spear appeared first, and right behind it, Qin Yue calmly strode out. He came to a stop directly in front of that miserable pair. As Qin Yue circled them, he was inwardly assessing his new power. He could feel it in his core, the power of the wilderness. Heaven's scripture was truly incredible. Even though he was only at the first level of the spiritual realm, his cultivation was already leagues beyond what it had been in his past life. He couldn't help but wonder just how terrifyingly strong he'd become once he fully unlocked this power. Across the hall, Zhou Dian's brow furrowed as he stared at Qin Yue. He was stunned, unable to get a read on Qin Yue's cultivation level. As for Li Qing He, she was completely drenched in a cold sweat. She couldn't believe her eyes. Staring at Qin Yue, she wondered how a man whose meridians had been completely destroyed, a total cripple, could possibly have returned. At the sight of this impossible scene, even the palace maids started to tremble in fear. Zhou Dian and Li Qing He could only watch frozen as Qin Yue approached them. The only words that escaped Zhou Dian's lips were, "This is impossible." Emperor Li Qing He also stared intently at Qin Yue, a quick calculation running through his mind. This Zhou Dian may be from the immortal clan, he thought, but he looks utterly useless at the moment. On the other hand, Qin Yue's aura is immense. He seems far more powerful than he ever was before. As this thought crossed his mind, Li Qing He's expression instantly shifted. Forcing a smile, he stroked his beard to calm his nerves and said, "Why, it's Qin Yue." He quickly fabricated an excuse, saying, "We didn't call for you today because we wanted you to stay home and rest from your injuries. But it seems your injuries were not so serious after all." But Qin Yue answered his sweet talk with the tip of his spear. As he aimed his weapon, Emperor Li Jian frowned. The emperor was clearly intimidated. Qin Yue challenged him, telling him to keep his laughable lies to himself. He reminded the emperor that if Qin Yue's father hadn't saved his life back then, he would have been a ghost long ago. Qin Yue angrily declared that his Qin family had faced countless hardships and made enormous sacrifices for the emperor's sake. But what did the emperor do in return? He revealed to everyone that Zhou Dian and Li Qing He had conspired to murder his grandfather and father in the great wilderness. Qin Yue stood before the emperor and loudly proclaimed that this enmity and betrayal could never be forgiven. Upon hearing this, the wealthy guests in attendance began to murmur and shout amongst themselves. As the commotion grew, Zhou Dian's anger finally exploded. He roared for Qin Yue to stop his nonsense. Killing intent radiated from his entire body as he glared at Qin Yue. He admitted to underestimating him, never expecting that his previous injury was just an act. Still, he arrogantly sneered that even if Qin Yue's cultivation remained, it was only at the first level of the spiritual realm. How dare he act so high and mighty? Qin Yue glared back with the same intensity, telling him to come and find out if he was so curious. As he spoke, Qin Yue brandished his spear, and his entire body began to glow with a golden light. Seeing this, the imperial guards immediately surrounded Emperor Li Jian, forming a protective circle and calling for reinforcements. Meanwhile, the old Emperor Li Jian was busy making calculations in his head. He figured that while both Zhou Dian and Qin Yue were at the first level of the spiritual realm, Zhou Dian possessed the blood of the immortal clan. Therefore, Qin Yue couldn't possibly compete with him. Smirking at his own conclusion, the emperor ordered Zhou Dian not to be too harsh. He feigned consideration, saying that the Qin family had, after all, served the dynasty loyally. So he should just receive a small punishment, destroying his cultivation to teach him a lesson. Zhou Dian obeyed the emperor, gathering energy in his hands as he stared menacingly at Qin Yue. A small punishment. The old man must be dreaming. He really thinks his son-in-law is some kind of hero. But we're about to find out who the real boss is. At that moment, Zhou Dian summoned his immortal energy and drew a weapon wreathed in divine power. It was a first-grade immortal weapon, the green flame sword, an ancestral treasure of the Zhao family. The crowd erupted at the sight of it. Everyone was shocked that it was a genuine immortal weapon, proving Zhou Dian was indeed a worthy descendant of the immortal clan. People murmured that no one could possibly survive a strike from such a weapon. Zhou Dian raised the immortal weapon high, and glaring at Qin Yue, he declared that the sword was his family's most precious treasure. Qin Yue rolled his eyes, aimed his own weapon at Zhou Dian, and replied that he was wielding the Qin family's war god spear. Even though it's only a 6th-grade mortal weapon, it has drunk the blood of thousands of enemies and claimed countless souls. It's a classic showdown, the airborne with a golden spoon versus the self-made warrior. Mortal versus immortal. Let's see who truly has the strength. Those are just empty words, Zhou Dian shouted angrily. In the end, it's just a humble mortal weapon. With that, he dragged his sword loudly across the ground before launching a direct attack on Qin Yue. He challenged him, saying, "Why don't you show me how you'll withstand this blow?" Qin Yue spun his spear, preparing to counter. The divine beast's mark on his forehead began to glow, and an overwhelming killing intent manifested behind him. Qin Yue's body and soul were primed for the attack. Then the shadow of Gyrus appeared. Qin Yue raised his spear and thrust it forward. The power of Gyrus flowed into the spear, intercepting and shattering Zhou Dian's attack mid-air. Seeing this, Zhou Dian's eyes widened in fear. The war god's spear, infused with the power of Gyrus, twisted like a dragon and snapped back towards Zhou Dian. He was completely stunned by the counterattack. Realizing the danger, Zhou Dian gritted his teeth and desperately tried to defend himself with his sword. He screamed, "How dare you underestimate me?" He poured all his strength and the sword's immortal energy into blocking the blow. But in the next moment, his eyes widened in disbelief. He watched as cracks began to spiderweb across his immortal sword. He couldn't understand how a mere mortal weapon could possess such devastating power. With a loud bang, the immortal sword's energy dissipated. The moment the blade shattered, Qin Yue's war god spear plunged straight into Zhou Dian's chest. Zhou Dian collapsed to the ground, writhing in pain as blood poured from his mouth. The crowd gasped in shock once again. No one could believe that Qin Yue had not only defeated a member of the immortal clan, but had also shattered his weapon in a single blow. Emperor Li Qing was also staring wide-eyed in shock. Princess Li Qing He fell deep into thought. How can Qin Yue be this powerful, she wondered. It seemed absolutely impossible. She raised her hand in panic and yelled for Zhou Dian to get up. She couldn't allow him to lose to Qin Yue. After the attack, Qin Yue calmly walked toward Zhou Dian and asked him, "And you call yourself a descendant of the immortal clan?" The injured Zhou Dian, trembling in agony, could only clutch the spear piercing him and curse through the pain. Without a shred of mercy, Qin Yue gripped the spear and yanked it out. He taunted, "Is this the son-in-law the royal family was so proud of?" The moment the spear was out, Zhou Dian screamed as blood gushed from the wound like a fountain. Qin Yue mocked the wretched man, saying he couldn't even take a single hit. "So if you were this weak, why did you even step forward?" Ouch, talk about adding insult to injury. First you stab the guy, then you ask if it hurts. What's gotten into him? Qin Yue is on a roll today. Zhou Dian slumped back, trembling and clutching his chest, realizing that Qin Yue's spear had just shattered his immortal weapon. Impossible. This meant that Qin Yue's weapon was no ordinary immortal weapon. He accused the Qin family of secretly hoarding immortal weapons. Qin Yue wiped the filth's blood from his spear point and stood tall, looking every bit the war god. He proudly declared that this war god's spear was forged through generations of bloodshed. It was nothing like that cheap sword Zhou Dian was so fond of using. Qin Yue glanced at his spear, thinking about Jairus' second divine power, the ability to release the power contained within a weapon. Hiding behind his guards, the scumbag emperor eyed the spear suspiciously. He thought to himself, how dare the Qin family? They couldn't possibly be hiding immortal weapons. He guessed that Qin Yue must have found it during his time in the Great Wilderness. The emperor decided to wait and see what other tricks this boy had up his sleeve. Seeing his son-in-law's pathetic state, Emperor Li Xian angrily scolded Zhou Dian. He berated him for not being able to defeat a mere weakling. Hearing this, Zhou Dian's entire body trembled with shame and rage. He suppressed his pain and staggered back to his feet. Suddenly, the immortal mark on his forehead began to glow, and a thick, killing intent emanated from his body. Zhou Dian roared that he had made the mistake of underestimating Qin Yue. "But don't you forget," he snarled, "I am still a descendant of the immortal clan." With that, he leaped into the air and lunged at Qin Yue. But before he could even complete his attack, he received a special delivery from Qin Yue. A powerful punch landed squarely on his face. The force was so immense that Zhou Dian spun dozens of times in the air before crashing to the ground. Zhou Dian hadn't even recovered from the shock of that punch when Qin Yue delivered another painful gift. Qin Yue landed a powerful kick straight to Zhou Dian's family jewels. The impact was so severe, it sounded like his equipment had been permanently decommissioned. Yep, he let out a piercing shriek, crying about his broken eggs. Seeing Zhou Dian writhing in pain, Qin Yue glared at him, reminding him that he was the one who had harmed his grandfather and father. Qin Yue announced that today, this blood debt would be paid in blood. He gripped his war god's spear with both hands and with all his might prepared to send Zhou Dian straight to hell. Seeing death staring him in the face, Zhou Dian began to beg for his life. Just then, a shadowy figure emitting a golden light appeared with lightning speed. Qin Yue had just turned in shock as the newcomer struck his war god spear with a powerful golden-handed punch. Qin Yue immediately moved to defend. But the force of the sudden attack pushed the spear's edge past Qin Yue's defense, lightly grazing Zhou Dian's arm. The very next moment, Zhou Dian screamed in agony as his hand was cleanly severed, flying into the air. Hey, at least he saved his life even if he lost a hand. The newcomer scooped Zhou Dian up and laid him aside. Qin Yue recognized the man Bai Wuti, the emperor's personal guard. He was a master at the second tier of the spiritual realm. Bai Wuti accused Qin Yue of attacking out of a desperate need to win. He took a step back to brace himself, and the next moment he laughed maniacally as he pounced on Qin Yue like a storm. Bai Wuti landed a fierce punch that sent Qin Yue flying high into the air. Suddenly, Bai Wuti appeared behind Qin Yue with a devilish smile, shouting that he was about to break. But just then, the divine beast mark on Qin Yue's forehead began to flash rapidly. The soul of Gyrus enveloped Qin Yue's body with its power. Seeing this, Bai Wuti was terrified and began to stammer. Qin Yue seized the opportunity and grabbed Bai Wuti's arm. After grabbing his arm, Qin Yue landed a direct kick on Bai Wuti's dantian and said, "Looks like you're the one who's going to break." Qin Yue's eyes burned with an ancient hatred. With a single attack, both of Bai Wuti's arms were torn from his body. They were severed and fell to the ground as blood gushed out like a river. Well, so much for the Golden Guard. Guess he wasn't so golden after all. In front of Qin Yue, they're all just cannon fodder. So, long Bai Wuti. After easily dispatching another enemy, Qin Yue landed calmly on the ground. He retrieved his war god spear from the dust and slowly began to walk towards Emperor Li Xian. He glared at the emperor and challenged him. "Now it's your turn." Emperor Li Xian's face turned red with rage as he screamed, "Qin Yue, you have crossed the line?" he roared. "It seems that living under the protection of your family has made you forget your place." Hearing this, Qin Yue paused for a moment, surprised at how stubborn the old man was. The emperor arrogantly declared that Qin Yue had made a grave mistake by underestimating the power of the royal family. "Looks like the final boss is about to step up. It's the emperor's turn now. Let's see what this old geezer can do." Just then, a team of royal guards leaped down from the rooftop, surrounding Qin Yue from all sides. All of them screamed in unison, demanding that Qin Yue accept his death. They were challenging him. Standing in the middle of them all, Qin Yue laughed and laughed. He addressed Emperor Li Xian, asking if this was the royal power he was so proud of. Qin Yue gathered his strength. Bathed in a golden light, he announced that the emperor had made a grave mistake in underestimating the strength of the Qin family. In the blink of an eye, Qin Yue broke their formation and with lightning speed slipped past the guards. Every single guard rushed forward to save the emperor, but it was too late. Emperor Li Xian couldn't believe his eyes. In an instant, Qin Yue was standing before him, his hand clamped tightly around the emperor's neck. Seeing this, Li Jian screamed in panic, calling out for his father. All the guards turned and stared in surprise. Now that's what you call speed. A terrified Emperor Li Xian warned Qin Yue to watch his step. He reminded him that he was surrounded by divine guards at the second level of the spiritual realm. So even if he killed the emperor, he wouldn't be able to get out of there alive, but Qin Yue's eyes only held the promise of death. He retorted sharply, telling the emperor that wasn't his problem to worry about. Qin Yue surveyed the divine guards and saw that the setup was exactly the same as in his previous life. Although the guards wore heavy dark iron armor and possessed great strength, they had one major weakness: their speed. With that thought, Qin Yue tightened his grip, causing the emperor to start suffocating. He was unable to speak and could only feel the pain, making choked, gasping noises. His eyes started to roll back as he just managed to sputter out Qin Yue's name. Baring his teeth, Qin Yue roared, "Die, you dog!" Just then, countless bolts of lightning struck from the sky, and the light of the celestial clan began to shine down on the court. Feeling the enormous pressure from above, Qin Yue looked up. A man was floating in the air. He told Qin Yue to stop saying he should show mercy and forgive others. Qin Yue was stunned to see him, immediately understanding that this man was at the peak of the spiritual realm. He was surprised, wondering why he'd never known about this hidden, super powerful person in his past life. The man had the immortal clan's mark on his forehead and divine wings on his back. This was Zhou Han, commander of the immortal clan. He began to preach a lesson on peace from his spot in the air. He said that the immortal clan and the royal clan have an ancient relationship, so Qin Yue had to spare the old emperor's life. Seeing his rescuer, Zhou Dian screamed and pleaded with his second uncle to kill Qin Yue. Emperor Li Xian, feeling his life was no longer in danger, regained his composure and began to laugh arrogantly. It seemed he thought Qin Yue couldn't harm him now. Qin Yue grew frustrated, knowing he couldn't compete with the immortal commander. Zhou Han then declared that the immortal clan always takes care of its people. Then he scolded Zhou Dian and finally instructed the emperor not to take revenge on Qin Yue. The timid emperor immediately agreed. Just then, the mark on Zhou Han's forehead flashed as he stared down at Qin Yue. Suddenly, Qin Yue realized his body was no longer under his control. The pressure from a 9th-level spiritual realm expert was so immense that his hands automatically began to loosen their grip on the emperor's neck. But Qin Yue didn't give up. He unleashed his divine power all at once, shouting that this much pressure wasn't enough to control him. A light fell from the sky, and Qin Yue's strength increased 10,000-fold. Qin Yue once again grabbed the emperor's neck. Zhou Han was also surprised, wondering how a first-level cultivator could possibly break through his pressure. Qin Yue was enveloped in a golden light, his eyes filled with killing intent. He said, "If an immortal being asks you to spare a life, then you should turn in." And the next moment, with a loud snap, he used his iron technique to twist Emperor Li Xian's neck. The emperor vomited blood and died. Li Qing screamed and the people panicked. Qin Yue has killed the king. Guards moved forward. Zhao Han was frightened and began to think that this boy must have found some incredible treasure in the great wilderness. Qin Yue flung the emperor's corpse toward Zhao Han, taunting him, "You wanted to save your king, right?" And that's a wrap, folks. The emperor thought his uncle would save him, but Qin Yue punched his ticket right in front of the guy. Talk about a system crash. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Qin Yue started to run, shouting back that he and Zhao Han would meet again in the future. But suddenly, a blast of blue energy collided with Qin Yue's body, transforming into a claw that slammed him to the ground. Zhao Han arrogantly asked if he really thought he could escape. Qin Yue tried to stand up, but the pressure was 10 times stronger than before. He instantly activated the mark on his forehead and summoned Jarius. A purple power erupted from his body. Qin Yue raised his god spear and launched countless attacks not at Zhao Han, but at the injured Zhou Dian. Seeing this, the poor prince started to panic. This forced Zhao Han to use his own strength to save Zhou Dian. He used a misspell to stop Qin Yue's attack. With Zhao Han's attention diverted, Qin Yue saw his chance and used his lightness skill to get out of there. Zhao Han shouted angrily, "You can't escape!" Qin Yue turned around and laughed loudly, saying that if he followed the injured, Zhou Dian would surely perish. "Now you decide for yourself what's more important." Zhao Han looked back at where Zhou Dian was repeatedly begging for help. Smiling, Zhao Han admitted to himself that this kid was interesting. She instructed Zhao Han, who then began the treatment using his divine power. While healing the injured Zhou Dian, he examined the wound with his divine power and calmly remarked, "The injury isn't very deep." But Zhou Dian was seething with anger and hatred. Clutching his wounded hand, he cried out to his second uncle, insisting that he must avenge this insult at all costs. Otherwise, he'd never find peace, unable to eat or sleep. Zhao Han calmly reassured him not to worry, promising that his uncle would certainly get revenge for him. He then turned to face the crowd, a demonic glint in his eyes, as he privately mocked the Emperor's Legion, thinking they were nothing but useless garbage. Elsewhere, Li Qing He was in a state of shock, having just witnessed Qin Yue kill her father. She was crying in a corner when Zhao Han coldly informed her that with her father now dead, she would have to serve her new master. Li Qing He wept but bowed her head in submission. Afterwards, Zhao Han floated into the air to address the people below. Looking down at the crowd, he announced, "People of the Divine Sword Dynasty, listen carefully. Your king is dead. Therefore, from now on, this dynasty is under the temporary control of the Immortal Clan." He then angrily ordered everyone to devote all their strength to capturing Qin Yue. He made it clear, "I want him alive, no matter what." The guards standing nearby were confused. They looked toward Li Qing He, stammering, "Princess." Li Qing He gritted her teeth in response. Hatred was boiling inside her. She looked up and commanded her guards, "All of you will obey the orders of the Immortal Clan's commander." Hearing this, a look of satisfaction spread across Zhao Huan's face. He smiled brightly and said, "Excellent. Just look how the tables have turned overnight. A princess becomes a slave and an entire dynasty becomes the property of the Immortal Clan. Now, that's what you call a total victory." By that time, Qin Yue had already reached the border of the Divine Sword Dynasty. As he fled, he knew that killing the emperor meant he was now in extreme danger. He would be facing deadly attacks from now on. But one question nagged him. Where should he go now? Suddenly it began to drizzle. This didn't happen in my previous life, he mused. Still, he considered assassinating the emperor a massive victory for the day. Reaching a cliff's edge, Qin Yue activated his movement skills, making a series of continuous leaps as he headed toward the forest. In the sky, the Divine Sword Dynasty had dispatched its divine eagles to spread the news across the land. The announcement declared that Qin Yue was an extremely cruel man from a fallen family, and a special assassination order had been issued for him. Him, whoever killed Qin Yue would be rewarded with 10,000 manors and an entire city. 10,000 manors? Bro, not even Zillow has that many listings. That kind of reward has a bigger budget than a summer blockbuster. Meanwhile, a horse-drawn carriage sped along the road below. It was moving at incredible speed. Inside this carriage, Qin Yue had found temporary shelter and was sitting quietly in the corner. His face was completely stoic. Across from him sat a young girl, Little Moon, who stared at him, feeling extremely uncomfortable. Qin Yue sat silently lost in deep thought. He was well aware that the Divine Sword Dynasty had issued a death warrant for him. He decided he would take refuge in the Tianhai Dynasty. Compared to them, the Divine Sword Dynasty is just a drop in the ocean, he thought. He thought of Zhou Dian and Li Qing He vowing to himself, "Just you wait, I'll be back to grind your bones into dust." Just then, the beautiful girl Little Moon turned to the old man beside her and asked, "Grandpa, why did we let this strange fugitive into our carriage?" She scrunched up her nose at Qin Yue's disheveled state, saying, "I mean, just look at him." Messy hair, a dirty face, and those devious-looking eyes. He can't be a good person." The old man chuckled and replied, "He may be a wandering cultivator, but he has a very strong physique. He could prove to be a good helper." Little Moon looked at her grandfather in disbelief. "Grandpa, are you forgetting who you are? You're the king of the Tianhe dynasty. Who in their right mind would dare threaten us?" Hearing her words, Qin Yue's eyes widened in shock. He couldn't believe it. This old man was none other than Zhang Anping, the great hero who stood like a mountain against the onslaught of the demon race. Qin Yue sadly recalled that in his past life, the Divine Sword dynasty aided by the Immortal clan had defeated the Tianhe dynasty, and the great king Zhang Anping himself had been killed by Zhou Dian. And now today he was sitting in that very same man's carriage. Fate works in mysterious ways. When Little Moon noticed Qin Yue staring blankly in her direction, she blushed even though he was just lost in his thoughts. When Qin Yue snapped out of it, he immediately turned his head away, his aloof attitude seeming to scream, "Yeah, I know I'm handsome, but you'll have to get in line." Seeing his arrogant behavior, Little Moon got irritated and clenched her fist, fuming internally that this guy was seriously getting on her nerves. Outside the speeding carriage, unknown shadowy figures were in pursuit, and a sense of death lingered in the air. King Zhang Anping's expression grew tense as his servant skillfully urged the horses onward. The driver, his brow furrowed with worry, informed his master, "We still have 100 miles to go to reach the dynasty, and night is falling." From inside, King Zhang Anping urged the coachman, "Hurry up, we must reach the Tianhe dynasty on time." Shh. We need to avoid any unfortunate incidents." Then turning to Qin Yue, he added, "I'm right, aren't I?" King Jinan stared at Qin Yue, and our hero mentally praised the king's perception. He realized the old man had figured out his true identity. The king had likely said it just loud enough for him to hear. Qin Yue smirked. This old man was every bit as clever as he seemed. Suddenly, countless arrows imbued with divine power began to rain down from the sky. One pierced a horse's neck, causing the animal to cry out in agony. It bucked violently, shaking the carriage so hard that everyone inside struggled to maintain their balance. Qin Yue's eyes flew open. He looked outside to see what was happening. The others were panicking and screaming in confusion as a massive sword sliced through the air, heading straight for the carriage. A beam of divine power shot through the vehicle, and in the blink of an eye, it was split clean in two. And boom, just like that. Talk about out of the frying pan and into the fire. Now, who's this powerhouse with the giant sword? It's really not King Jinin's day today. The massive blade swung back and disappeared into a cloud of settling dust, and from within the mist, a woman's voice emerged. She was holding a large sword, and a cold, terrifying aura radiated from her body. "King Jinan, she said, "I have received orders to take your head." Narrowing his eyes, the king recognized the insignia on her armor. Qin Yue also recognized it with a start. This was the death sect, the Tianhe dynasty's most dangerous squad of assassins. The woman planted her sword in the ground, stroking the blade as she spoke. You should accept your death quietly." King Jinan stroked his beard and let out a laugh. "Your death sect is making a huge mistake if you think this old man is some pushover." Anger was now clearly visible in his eyes. The king's retainers summoned their fairy energy and prepared to fight. The king taunted the assassin, asking if she really had the nerve to fight them all by herself. The death sect assassin calmly replied, "I am definitely not alone." At that exact moment, a brilliant light flared into existence directly above the king's head. It shot towards them with incredible speed. As soon as Qin Yue saw it, his eyes widened in shock, and he cried out a warning. "King, be careful!" Without a moment's hesitation, Qin Yue raised his hands and summoned his war god spear. Gripping the spear tightly, he leaped into the air to intercept the deadly arrow before it could reach King Jinan. The king stared at Qin Yue in utter disbelief. He was stunned by the young man's power. In midair, Qin Yue gritted his teeth, struggling with all his might to stop the sun god arrow. Finally, with a powerful twisting motion, Qin Yue sliced the arrow in half. After breaking the arrow, Qin Yue landed right in front of King Jinan's guards. He brandished his spear and deflected the remaining volley of arrows still in the air. However, the force behind the projectiles was so great that he was knocked back several feet. He stumbled, breathing heavily. The female assassin stared at Qin Yue, and a slow, impressed smile spread across her lips. She praised him, admitting she hadn't expected him to be able to stop her sun god arrow. With that, she jumped down to stand beside her partner. When King Jinan got a good look at the broken weapon, his eyes widened in surprise. He recognized it as the sun god arrow, one of the death sect's 3 great legendary killing weapons. The old king took a deep breath, feeling the terrifying aura of the death sect assassins. He glared at the 2 women and shouted for them to listen carefully. He declared that he was ready to embrace his death. His one and only condition was that the others with him be allowed to leave here safely. Hearing this, his attendants grew frantic. One of them cried out in protest. The lead assassin simply swung her greatsword to point it at King Jinan, stating that she would fulfill his last wish. By doing so, they would save a lot of time. But Qin Yue immediately stepped forward, shielding King Jinan. "Stop with the grand sacrifice," he said, clarifying that, as long as he was alive, nothing would happen to the king. He then glared at the Death Sect assassins, challenging that he would be their opponent. Wow, the king might be old, but our boy is ready to throw down. That old habit of making sacrifices is still there, and he's as stubborn as ever. Death is standing right there, and this man is giving it attitude. Hearing Qin Yue's challenge, both female assassins unleashed their domineering auras, threatening that if he had a death wish, they would be happy to grant it. Qin Yue spun his spear into a fighting stance and said, "First, tell me your names. I don't kill nameless people." The assassins replied in unison, "Death Sect Chiwu," and "Death Sect Yixi." Qin Yue stared at the two sisters, thinking to himself that, as he'd expected, these were the famous Wu sisters from his previous life. Qin Yue remembered that these two sisters were legendary, quite famous throughout the lands. In the end, though, they had both been killed by Zhou Dian. Suddenly, a brilliant idea popped into Qin Yue's head. If he could recruit both of them as his subordinates, it would be a pretty sweet deal. Hold on. His life is on the line, and my man Qin Yue is thinking about hiring. You gonna ask for their resumes? See what their salary expectations are? While these thoughts raced through his mind, Yixi stepped back and then shot forward. She swung her great sword with all her might, throwing it towards Qin Yue. Seeing the attack, a look of excitement flashed across Qin Yue's face. Perfect timing, he thought. At the same time, Qin Yue raised his War God spear and thrust it forward with all his strength. The War God spear shot forward, cutting through the air as it collided with the massive sword. Boom! A fierce shockwave erupted from the clash of their weapons. Dust and smoke spread everywhere. Xiao Yu and Wang Yan were thrown back by the force of the blast and scrambled to get away. He had to raise his hands to shield himself. Qin Yue gripped his spear tightly and stared at Vasi, who taunted that the Qin family's war god was still a bit weak. But then Qin Yue's eyes widened. He saw Vasi charging straight for him with her massive sword. Vasi, who now had the upper hand, arrogantly declared her attack War God's Fear. Meanwhile, the other sister Yue knocked another arrow to her sun god bow and aimed it straight at Qin Yue. She laughed, saying that if Qin Yue could withstand even 30% of the arrow's power, he should consider himself lucky. Yue then fired, aiming squarely for Qin Yue's chest, and declared that this arrow would surely take his life. One with a sword, the other with an arrow. Looks like they're trying to make a Qin Yue sandwich today. Let's see how long this War God's Fear lasts. Qin Yue acted cleverly. With a slight flick and a quick rotation of his spear, he threw Vasi off balance. Now at a disadvantage, Vasi watched Qin Yue carefully. She had to admit that for someone at the first level of the spiritual rune realm, withstanding 2 of her attacks was quite impressive. As soon as she thought this, Vasi channeled her divine power into a single killing move. Behind her, the phantom of a blazing sunblade appeared. It was a supreme martial skill of the royal grade. Qin Yue shouted, "Jairus Phantom, appear!" Instantly, the spirit of Jairus materialized and let out a mighty roar that shook the very heavens. The Jairus Phantom spread its wings and easily blocked Vasi's blazing sunblade. The sound of the collision echoed everywhere. Qin Yue realized it took a tremendous amount of energy to stop that attack. He gritted his teeth and endured the strain. Just then, cracks began to appear on the Jairus Phantom. In no time, it shattered back into spiritual energy. The shockwave sent Qin Yue flying backward. Qin Yue was thrown a great distance, scraping along the ground before he could stop himself. Getting back up, he glared at Vasi and thought to himself, "I summoned Jairus, but I'm only at the first level while Vasi is at the second. I don't have a martial skill powerful enough to compete with that. This is really difficult." But the next moment, Qin Yue stood up and started laughing loudly. "Ha! There's a problem with your martial skill," he declared. Vasi, radiating a dominating aura, slowly advanced. She told him to stop bluffing. Qin Yue took his stance with the spear and said, "Your martial skill is incomplete. It should be capable of unleashing the full power of a mystic grade skill. But in your hands, it's only reached the peak of the royal grade." Angered, Vasi hurled countless phantom blades of energy toward Qin Yue. Qin Yue calmly closed his eyes. He began to sense the attacks, easily dodging each blade of energy one by one. In that same moment, Qin Yue gripped his War God spear tightly and aimed its tip at Vasi. In a single stroke, he knocked the great sword from Vasi's hand. Having easily overpowered her, Qin Yue placed the tip of his spear at her throat. He had her. If he wanted to, he could end it all in an instant. Vasi was utterly shocked, her eyes wide with disbelief. Qin Yue felt a sense of relief, knowing he now had the advantage. He remembered Vasi's taunts. He reminded her that he had already pointed out her martial art was flawed and full of openings. Standing far away, Yue immediately nocked an arrow and aimed it directly at Qin Yue. She yelled angrily at Qin Yue, telling him to let her sister go immediately. Qin Yue glared sternly at Yue before looking back at Vasi. He offered to help her improve her technique. "But I have one condition," he added. Vasi, however, angrily shouted that she didn't need his help. She turned to her sister and told Yue not to worry about her, but to complete their mission and kill everyone quickly. But Yue was extremely worried about her sister. Her hand trembled on the bow. She didn't dare shoot the arrow. You can just feel the fear in her eyes. The sword-wielding sister has a spear at her neck, and the archer sister's hand is shaking. This is what you call total domination. Qin Yue continued to observe the two sisters. He thought to himself, the bond between these two is very deep. Standing behind them, the guards Zhou Dian and Zhang were stunned by the scene. The old king assessed the young man from the Qin family in his mind, believing the boy was indeed dangerous. The old king was relieved. He had bet on the right horse. Qin Yue pushed his spear a little further. The tip was now a few centimeters deep in Vasi's throat, causing her a slight bit of pain. Seeing this, Yue finally made a decision. She slowly lowered her weapon, put it away, and knelt. She pleaded with Qin Yue to spare her sister's life. "I'm ready to die in her place," she offered. Qin Yue closed his eyes, falling into deep thought. The situation he wanted had now been created. He slowly pulled back his war god spear and said gravely, "The people from the death sect are extremely cruel and immoral. Even though they may have raised you to, everything you've done for them has been against your will." Vasi pressed a hand to the wound on her neck and stared at Qin Yue, asking how he knew all this. Qin Yue said it was obvious. Not only that, but he also knew that the leader of the death sect had been interfering in their personal matters for a long time. Qin Yue continued to expose the death sect. He revealed that the families the two sisters had killed before were all secretly being controlled by the death sect itself. They had even been turned into puppets. Wu Yu angrily jumped to her feet, denying it and calling it a lie. Qin Yue simply looked at her and said, "It's true. Or you can go check for yourself." Qin Yue thought to himself that the leaders of the death sect likely knew nothing about these two sisters' side activities. His words were sure to plant a seed of doubt in their minds, and sooner or later, the two sisters would fall right into his hands. Qin Yue continued saying he was offering them a way out, leave the death sect and join him. Wu Yu said in surprise, "You've got a lot of nerve. Do you have any idea how powerful the death sect really is? If they were to leave the death sect, there would only be one path left for them, and that is death." Qin Yue pulled back his spear and turned to leave. Without looking back, he said, "Don't be hasty. I'm giving you time to think. When you have your answer, you know where to find me." After all, he was the eldest son of the Tianhe dynasty. He would be waiting for them here. Wu Yue watched Qin Yue's back as he left, realizing he'd had the chance to kill them, but was simply walking away. If the two sisters had attacked together, Qin Yue wouldn't have been able to stop them. Qin Yue kept walking, then glanced back coldly and said loudly, "Then come and try me." With that, he was lost in thought as he departed. She was now beginning to suspect both the death sect and Qin Yue, but Wu Yue still wasn't ready to give up. She watched Qin Yue leave angrily and shouted that the sisters never owe anyone a thing. "Even though you're letting us go this time, the next time we meet, I'll definitely kill you." Then she pointed her finger at the Xuanan king, threatening him. "Don't think you can relax just because you're in the Tianhai kingdom. The death sect has 100 ways to kill you." After saying this, the two sisters used their lightness skill and vanished. Talk about attitude. "Come and try me. I don't even have that much confidence walking into an exam and telling the professor, 'Go ahead, try and fail me.'" The Zhenin king took a deep breath, and the tense atmosphere finally calmed as everyone let out a sigh of relief. Xiao Yue's face was flushed with shame. She was fuming. Lowering her gaze, she slowly thanked Qin Yue. In response, a mischievous smile spread across Qin Yue's face. He leaned forward slightly and teased Xiao Yue to hear a thank you from the Xuanan king's granddaughter. Wow. My ancestors for the past 8 generations must have done something right. But the next moment he turned to the Zhenin king and fired off a powerful question. "King Zhenin, how about letting me marry your granddaughter?" Upon hearing this, Xiao Yue was so flustered she could barely speak. What are you trying to say?" The old king stroked his beard, his eyes sparkling. He praised Qin Yue profusely, calling him a genius of the younger generation. The king then raised a finger, smiling, as he hinted at a secret. As far as background is concerned, Qin Yue is more than worthy of this match. Xiao Yue was confused at first. What background? The Divine Sword Kingdom? The Qin family? But then a light bulb went off in her head. She shrieked in shock, You're the Qin Yue from the wanted posters." And just like that, the secret was out. So he's not some romantic hero, but a wanted criminal. Her reaction was priceless. As soon as she found out the truth, she whirled around to face her grandfather. "You knew about this the whole time." The Zhenin king couldn't stop laughing. He jokingly pushed his granddaughter forward. "If young Qin Yue is truly interested, I'm ready to serve as the witness right now." Xiao Yue was overcome with embarrassment. She was utterly speechless. Just then Qin Yue laughed, patted his own head, and ended the conversation right there. "Ahem, let's just drop it. I was just kidding." Hearing this, Xiao Yue was surprised. Along with her anger, there was a small corner of her heart that felt a little disappointed. Qin Yue moved on without another word, leaving Xiao Yue clenching her fists in anger. His words had struck a nerve. A storm of questions raged in her mind. How dare that boy play with her emotions like that? Didn't she deserve better? After a while, the convoy reached the Yanhe kingdom. Guards lined both sides of the road, patrolling strictly. As soon as the Zhenin king stepped inside the capital gates, a wave of excitement spread through the crowd. Cheers erupted all around. "Look, the Zhenin king has returned." Xiao Yue walked beside the king, and the crowd roared upon seeing her. "Hey, look, Princess Moonflower is here too." Get ready for the hero's grand entrance to the sound of public applause. Now Qin Yu's real journey in the Tianhe kingdom will begin. Just then, Huang Fei pushed through the crowd. He hurried over to the Zhenin king and welcomed him politely, saying, "Your Highness, you've finally returned. My father has been missing you terribly." The old Zhenin king stroked his beard and agreed with a smile. "Indeed, it has been far too long since I've seen your father." Then Huang Fei turned to Xiao Yue and said with an air of possession, "I've missed you a lot, Xiao Yue." Xiao Yue's face turned to stone. She told Huang Fei clearly to stay away, as they had never been that close. Huang Fei stared at Xiao Yue, reminding her that they were childhood friends whose engagement was arranged before they were even born. "So don't say such things." Seizing the opportunity, Qin Yue reached out and pulled Xiao Yue closer to him. While calling out to Huang Fei, he taunted him that his fiancée wasn't bad-looking and was quite talented. It looked like Xiao Yue was feeling embarrassed and angry. She shouted back flatly, denying that she was his fiancée. Huang Fei, taking the taunt as a compliment, arrogantly replied that Qin Yue was being far too kind. When Xiao Yue saw Huang Fei's arrogant face, a mischievous idea popped into her head. She rushed over and hugged Qin Yue tightly, putting on an overly affectionate display as she asked, "Honey, are you upset again?" Seeing this scene, Huang Fei became absolutely furious. His eyes practically popped out of his head like in a cartoon stretching a good 5 meters. The Zhenin king and his guards wisely chose to shut their eyes and shake their heads, pretending they hadn't seen a thing. Just as Huang Fei was about to say something in anger, Xiao Yue grabbed Qin Yu's hand and presented him to Huang Fei, declaring that this was the man who truly held her heart. Huang Fei's anger was becoming unbearable. He yelled at Xiao Yue to stop messing around. But Xiao Yue kept the lie going, claiming they had even set a wedding date so she could spend the rest of her life with him. Upon hearing this, Huang Fei's eyes practically shot flames. He gripped the fan in his hand so tightly that it shattered into pieces. Suppressing his rage, he changed the subject and told the king that he had prepared a feast. He then offered to help them get settled in and freshen up. Talk about self-control. You could almost hear his heart shattering from here. Meanwhile, a strange sight was unfolding in Tianhe City. A group was riding on some bizarre-looking animals. Some resembled triceratops, while another looked like a dinosaur with chicken talons. It was like a cultivation story had a crossover episode with Jurassic Park. These two dinos were a tribute to the Zhenin king. The escort from the artifact refining sect was making small talk with Xiao Yue along the way, but Qin Yue and Huang Fei sat in complete silence. Eventually, Huang Fei decided to assert his authority and threaten Qin Yue. He gently warned him that Xiao Yue was his woman. He gave Qin Yue one night, telling him that if he was still around by morning, he would be skinned alive. Qin Yue, smiling, turned to Huang Fei and said calmly, "And why would I leave now?" He looked Huang Fei right in the eyes with a devilish smile and said, "Just wait until I marry Xiao Yue. We'll have a boy and a girl. After that, maybe we'll think about leaving." Oof, that's not just rubbing salt in the wound, that's pouring acid on it. He laid out his entire future plan with the guy's fiancée. At this point, Huang Fei's blood pressure didn't just spike, it exploded. Hearing this, he clutched his chest in pain. He began to imagine Qin Yue and Xiao Yue together, forever, even having children. The thought alone was enough to give him a heart attack. That was the last straw. He flew into a rage, grabbed Qin Yue by the collar, and roared, "Are you looking to die?" Qin Yu's expression became even more provocative. He said something so outrageous that it left Huang Fei completely speechless. My apologies. Or should we perhaps discuss which positions we'll use, traditional or doggy style? Shish, if you've got the guts, then kill me right now. Huang Fei was seething with anger, but he couldn't do anything in that situation. so he was forced to let go of Qin Yue's collar. Qin Yue dusted himself off, thinking, wow, the moment Xiao Yue shows up, she lands me in some serious trouble. After a while, they all arrived at the artifact refining sect. Upon arrival, they were greeted by the sight of a massive roaring holy fire furnace. Huang Fei welcomed the Zenin king. The king praised the entrance, noting that the layout was at least low-grade imperial level. Huang Fei feigned modesty, saying his father had just thrown it together for fun. Huang Fei led everyone towards the main hall, explaining that his father wasn't currently in the mansion, so he would be their host for the day. As he went to arrange for food and drinks, Qin Yue took in the luxurious sect, amazed by its opulence. He started complimenting the place. Man, the villain's headquarters is even bigger than the hero's palace in this story. Now let's see why this guy is so protective of his fancy sect. After a little while, a fragrant aroma filled the room, and a table was set laden with food. Huang Fei emerged from the kitchen. He was chanting, "It's ready, it's ready." In his hands, he held a special plate of earth dragon meat. With great fanfare, he placed the dish directly in front of Xiao Yue, telling her in a fawning tone that it was earth dragon meat. He explained that it's extremely beneficial for martial artists who are training their bodies, especially after such a long journey. He was obviously just trying to impress Xiao Yue. Suddenly, Qin Yue's voice piped up. "Wow, this is delicious. What amazing flavor." Huang Fei panicked and whipped his head around. He was shocked. "Oh crap, my dragon meat." He immediately leaped forward to snatch it back, shouting that it wasn't for him. But Qin Yue simply moved his hand and gave Huang Fei's approaching hand a hard slap. The slap was so powerful that Huang Fei's hand went numb. He stumbled back, feeling a wave of weakness, and thought to himself, this kid hits seriously hard. In the blink of an eye, Qin Yue had licked the plate clean, leaving nothing but a single dry bone. As soon as he finished eating, he felt a tremendous energy surge through his body. His entire frame began to glow with golden light as he sat there and unblocked some of his clogged meridians. He broke through. Qin Yue looked down at his hands, feeling overjoyed and filled with a new sense of power. He shouted, "Incredible, I feel great." After this, it seemed like nothing could stand in his way. After finishing his bowl of rice and cleaning his plate, Wang Fei approached Zhanqing once the meal was over. With a smug smile and his arms crossed proudly, he shared some fantastic news. He announced that he had recently awakened a 5th grade holy fire, and on top of that, his own direct ancestor had accepted him as a disciple. Hearing this, both Zhanqing and Xiao Yue were stunned. They could only stare at Wang Fei in utter shock. Wang Fei continued, saying that his master also knew about the arranged marriage between him and Xiao Yue. In fact, his master, Yan Hisiki, would be coming personally in a few days to marry them. Wang Fei narrowed his eyes and shot a wicked smile in Xiao Yue's direction. "My master has promised to arrange the most spectacular wedding the Empire has ever seen," he boasted. "The preparations will be unlike anything anyone has ever witnessed." Zhanqing sat quietly, his expression grim. He thought to himself, "This nephew of mine is becoming a real thorn in my side." And here's the real kicker: not only does the villain have power and a holy fire, but he also has the backing of an ancient master. Qin Yue, who was sitting and eating beside Wang Fei, listened to his words and quietly made some calculations in his head. He thought to himself, I hadn't expected Wang Fei to awaken a 5th grade holy fire. In this age, a holy fire is a natural gift for any fire-type martial artist. Qin Yue visualized the holy fire chart in his mind. In total, there are 9 grades of holy fire. The 1st grade is the weakest, and the 9th grade is the strongest. Anyone who possesses a holy fire can achieve the status of a top-tier key refiner on the continent. Even though Wang Fei had only awakened a 5th grade holy fire in the Taihua Republic, this was still considered exceptionally rare. Qin Yue also gauged the ancestor's strength. His cultivation was at the peak of the spiritual realm. He was the kind of person who could summon wind and rain at will. Night fell and the moon rose high in the sky. After dinner, Qin Yue headed towards the Tianhai Inn, the largest in the city. Xiao Yue followed behind him, looking rather perplexed. She asked in confusion, "You could have stayed at the mansion. Why are you going to an inn?" At the entrance to the inn, Qin Yue turned to look at her and said with a grin, "What's wrong? Can't bear to be apart from me." Suddenly, Qin Yue's eyes widened. Xiao Yue's face had fallen, and her eyes were welling up with tears. Without a word, she turned, hiding her face, and ran back toward the Jindan King's mansion. Qin Yue watched her go. He silently vowed, "Don't worry, that Wang Fei is no good. I'll never let you fall into that devil's clutches." A little later, Qin Yue went inside the inn and rented a room. He sat on the bed and began to meditate. Immediately, his body was enveloped in a golden light, and behind him the spirit of a Zhiji appeared. "The fastest way to raise my cultivation level is by using the flesh and blood of strange beasts," Qin Yue thought. "I'll have to go find some high-quality ones to purchase tomorrow." A glint appeared in his eyes. "As soon as I reach the 2nd level of the spiritual realm, I can unlock my other spirit beast, the 9-legged golden crow." This was no ordinary bird, but a mythical golden crow with 9 legs. It was a creature that controlled the heavenly and earthly strange fires. Qin Yue chuckled to himself. Wang Fei is so proud of his 5th grade holy fire, isn't he? I wonder what his face will look like when he sees my 9th grade holy fire. Meanwhile, at the artifact refining sect, Wang Fei had ordered his men to run a background check on Qin Yue. His servants reported back that Qin Yue was, in fact, from the Qin family of the Divine Sword Kingdom. Wang Fei roared with laughter upon hearing the name. The Qin family. So this is the Qin Yue the immortal clan is hunting for because he double-crossed them. He cackled menacingly. He deserves to die, and to think I thought he was some dangerous opponent. But he's just a piece of trash after all, Wang Fei decided. Fine, I'll let him live for now. I want him to watch with his own 2 eyes. How Xiao Yue becomes my wife. Ah, the classic villain blunder. They always make the same mistake. They underestimate the hero, and that same trash always comes back to bite them. Back at the inn, Qin Yue had just finished writing down a martial skill. It was called the Wind Thunder Roar, a skill he had been lucky enough to acquire in his past life. Although it was only a low-grade mystic rank skill, it was valuable enough to be traded for a wealth of heavenly and earthly treasures. Qin Yue slowly got out of bed, put on his robe, and headed toward the city's auction house. Half an hour later, he arrived at the entrance. Inside, countless members of both the demon and human races were gathered. Qin Yue stepped in and looked around, a sense of nostalgia washing over him. I'm back again, he thought with a small smile. Just then, an attendant from the Emilian demon clan approached and greeted him respectfully. The attendant asked what the young master required. Qin Yue, deep in thought, shook his head and said that what he needed was something a regular attendant couldn't handle. Then Qin Yue gestured in a particular direction and ordered the attendant to summon Miss Warner at once. The stunned Emilian demon stammered, "Young master, please wait just a moment." A short while later, a massive 3-headed snake slithered out from a nearby chamber. Perched on the snake's back was a woman, holding a long pipe, from which she elegantly blew smoke rings into the air. It was Dugu Warner. She approached and asked if the young master had ever met her before, admitting she couldn't recall. Qin Yue observed Dugu Warner carefully, and as the old man beside her identified him, he said, "It's been a long time, Warner." Warner, seated on her serpent throne, looked Qin Yue up and down, wondering, who is this kid? I've never seen him around here before. Qin Yue stepped forward and got straight to the point, stating his intention to participate in today's secret auction. Warner stared at him and let out a curious, "Oh." Standing beside her, Camille Damon narrowed his eyes at Qin Yue, sensing that someone dangerous had arrived. Dugu Warner turned and led the way, saying, "Young master, please follow me." A few minutes later, Qin Yue was brought to the secret auction hall. The old man chameleon bowed and opened the door, signaling for Qin Yue to enter. As he entered the waiting hall, Qin Yue yawned and thought, "It feels great to be back here." Warner lit her pipe, took a long drag, and remarked, "This young master seems rather clueless. He has no credentials. Who brought him here?" Qin Yue folded his arms and replied coldly, "You don't need to know that, Warner. I'm here for today's secret auction." He added that he was well aware of the rules. Then Qin Yue pulled the Wind Thunder Growth manual from his clothes, showed it to her, and asked her to appraise its value. Dugu Warner took the manual and began examining it carefully. Suddenly her eyes widened in surprise. She asked, "Where did you get this? Is this a mysterious rank technique?" Just seeing the one book left, Warner completely shocked. "This is no simple book. It's a treasure," she murmured. With a smug look, Qin Yue folded his arms and replied proudly, "Correct. It's a low-grade mysterious rank technique." Holding the manual, Dugu Warner asked if he really intended to auction such a valuable item. Qin Yue nodded firmly and said, "Absolutely." Warner became a bit flustered as she prepared to make an offer. She calculated that if the technique were put up for auction, it could fetch maybe 1 million gold coins. However, she told Qin Yue that if he trusted her, the TNA auction house would buy it from him directly for 1.5 million gold coins. Qin Yue's eyes lit up as he began doing some mental math. A second-grade body tempering pill costs about 10,000 gold coins. So 1.5 million gold coins means I could buy 150 of those pills, he thought. Not bad at all. He immediately accepted Warner's offer. "It's a deal," he said, "but I need body tempering pills in exchange for the money." Dugu Warner was ecstatic knowing she'd acquired a mysterious rank technique for a bargain price. Warner put the pipe to her lips and took another long drag. She thought to herself, "I can't believe this young man possessed a low-grade mysterious rank technique." She wondered if he was a disciple from a major power sent to the TNA Empire for training. Dugu Warner then formally invited Qin Yue to attend that night's auction. I'd be delighted to participate, Qin Yue said with a nod. Qin Yue rested his chin on his hand, recalling his past life. If I remember correctly, he thought, an extraordinary treasure is supposed to appear at the TNA auction today. Dougal Warner happily offered to be Qin Yue's guide. Excellent, she said. Allow me to show you to an exclusive seat. Warner spread her arms and announced loudly, Welcome to the underground hall where today's most distinguished guests are gathered. The people around them were surprised, murmuring amongst themselves, Warner has never smiled so warmly at anyone before. Who exactly is this boy? The woman who hadn't given him a second glance earlier was now giving him the full VIP treatment. It seems the old saying, money talks, is true even in the cultivation world. Qin Yue sat down in the exclusive chair. Suddenly a man with a scarred face and a sneer appeared behind Warner. It was Wang Xuan, the heir to the divine merchant sect. He immediately began boasting that his sect had brought some exceptional items today. Warner, showing her annoyance, offered him a curt thank you. Wang Xuan continued to flatter her, complaining that she had rejected his father's marriage proposal. As he spoke, he tried to casually touch her hand, but Warner, with great agility, sidestepped his advance. Wang Xuan smirked sleazily and said that all the items from his sect today were wedding gifts for her, an offer not even her father could refuse. Warner clearly wanted to get away from him. Qin Yue, who had been observing the whole exchange, glanced past them. His eyes landed on a damaged celestial quality long saber that was emitting a faint blue light. Qin Yue recognized it as the broken celestial weapon Tadan Tawang. On one side, the lecherous Wang Xuan, on the other, a legendary weapon. Qin Yue's focus was squarely on the sword, not the drama. Our boy has his priorities straight. Just then, Wang Xuan noticed Qin Yue sitting in the seat opposite him. He immediately slammed his hand on Qin Yue's shoulder and yelled, That's my seat, get out of there! Dougal Warner stepped between them and stopped. Wang Xuan explaining that Qin Yue was her honored guest. Wang Xuan was furious, shouting that the seat had always been his. Qin Yue challenged him, This seat is mine now. If you've got the guts, come and take it. Wang Xuan stepped forward, shouting that Qin Yue was merely a spiritual realm cultivator and didn't deserve to sit there. In response, Qin Yue casually waved his hand, and a silent slap landed squarely on Wang Xuan's cheek. Smack trash like you should get lost, Qin Yue said coldly. Wang Xuan staggered back from the slap, clutching his face in disbelief. He started threatening the man, swearing he'd call Qin Yue and have him killed. Qin Yue just stared him down, and his simple threat silenced the entire room. Stop barking. Bark one more time and I'll string your grandfather up on a cross right now, then I'll strip you naked and kill you. Wow, he even brought the guy's grandpa into it. Not only did he get slapped, but his entire family was threatened. Wang Shan's brain just about short-circuited. He was going absolutely mad with rage and humiliation. But Dougal Warner angrily shouted for them to stop. He made it crystal clear that no one was allowed to cause a commotion in the auction house. The second he heard Warner's voice, Wang Shan became as meek as a kitten. He muttered under his breath as he sat down, vowing to destroy their entire family after the auction. Watching from a distance, one of Wang Fei's men saw the whole thing unfold. The man pulled a command tablet from his pocket. It looked suspiciously like a Ming Dynasty edition of an iPhone 14 Pro. He immediately sent a message to Wang Fei informing him that Qin Yue was at the auction house and had just picked a fight with Wang Shan from the Divine Merchant sect. Man, this Ming Dynasty tech is on another level. With Wang Fei in the loop, Qin Yue now had two powerful enemies gunning for him. Meanwhile, over at the royal mansion, Wang Fei of the Artifact Refining sect was living the good life. He was relaxing, eating fruit while being waited on by beautiful women. Suddenly, the command tablet next to him, which looked exactly like an iPhone 17 Pro, lit up. A notification chimed. It was the message from his subordinate. After reading the message, a devilish grin spread across Wang Fei's face. He thought to himself, by offending Wang Shan, Qin Yue has basically signed his own death warrant. Then Wang Fei tapped a few times on his iPhone 17 Pro tablet and sent a message to Wang Shan. Back in the auction house, Wang Shan pulled out his own command tablet, which looked just like a Samsung 24 Ultra. He read the message and immediately knew it was from Wang Fei. Wang Shan glared at Qin Yue. He figured this kid was sharper than he looked and must be some kind of big shot. But it turned out he was just a nobody from a fallen dynasty. Now the scene shifts back to the auction stage. On stage, Dougal Warner welcomed everyone. He announced that the items for sale today were 100 times rarer and more high-end than usual. The eager guests shouted for him to cut the suspense and start the auction. Warner then revealed the first item. It was a medicinal vitality pill. As the container was opened, a brilliant light shone from within. Warner explained that this pill was like nectar for anyone up to the first level of the spiritual realm. For someone gravely injured, this pill could regenerate flesh and blood from bare bones. The starting price was set at 10,000 gold. The guests went wild, immediately bidding 15,000, then 18,000. But Qin Yue wasn't impressed. He figured this stuff was useless to him. He decided to take a quick nap and wake up when the really good items came out. And with that thought, he promptly fell fast asleep. From a distance, Wang Shen watched him sleep and smirked, thinking, "Go ahead and sleep, kid. It's going to be your last peaceful day." Half an hour went by. Warner signaled for them to bring out the second-to-last item. The moment the container appeared, Qin Yue's eyes snapped open. He sat bolt upright with excitement. He muttered to himself, "It's here, it's finally here. The main event." Across the hall, Wang Fei's subordinate also recognized it, exclaiming that it was the damaged immortal weapon his master needed. Warner introduced the item, a first-grade immortal weapon, the Shattered God Spear. Even though it's damaged, the starting price is 1 million gold coins. Wang Fei's subordinate immediately bid 1.5 million and added a threat. "This artifact is essential for the refining sect. I suggest you all show some respect and stay out of the bidding." Warner was annoyed that they were using their sect's name to pressure everyone. Just as Qin Yue was about to make a bid, a robed girl's voice called out, 2 million. It was none other than Vasi. The subordinate angrily yelled, "Who dares to bid against me?" But as soon as Vasi removed her hood, the subordinate began to tremble with fear. Recognizing the death sect, he immediately backed down, thinking, Wang Fei wouldn't blame me for retreating from the death sect. Vasi smiled, thinking the item was hers. But then Qin Yue stood up and loudly bid 3 million. After seeing Vasi, he even shot her a provocative look. Both Vasi and Wang Shan were stunned. Where did this kid get that kind of money? Warner asked, "Any other bids?" When the room fell silent, Warner blew a kiss toward Qin Yue and said, "Then this weapon is yours." Qin Yue felt a chill run down his spine from that kiss and quickly sidestepped. "Look at our boy's luck, he even scored an immortal weapon. Unlike my viewers who are probably watching this alone during Valentine's week." Anyway, it was finally time for the main event, the Thunder Palm, a low-grade mysterious skill. The guests could examine the manual before bidding. With a starting price of 5 million gold, people began bidding as if their lives depended on it. The bidding quickly shot past 6 million to 7 million. Then Wang Shan roared with all his might, 10 million. But Wang Fei's subordinate immediately cut him off. 12 million. Wang Shan went ballistic. He screamed at the subordinate, demanding to know what he was doing. But the subordinate calmly replied in a low voice that he had orders to acquire this skill at any cost. Then he slammed his hand down and yelled, 15 million gold coins. Wang Shan's fury exploded. In his mind, he cursed Wang Fei, thinking how despicable the man was. On one hand, you want my help, but on the other hand, he's snatching my item right from under my nose, and you just want me to teach him a lesson. Keep dreaming. I'd never do that, Wazi muttered, before giving the bidder a devilish smile and taunting, just 15 million, they must think a low-grade mysterious level skill is all they need. Without a moment's hesitation, he raised his hand in the air and the entire hall shook. 18 million. But before anyone could react, Qin Yue suddenly clamped a hand over Wasi's mouth. He signaled with his eyes for him to stop bidding and to let him handle it. Wasi glared angrily at Qin Yue. A war was raging in his mind about whether he could really trust someone like him. What if he was being cheated? He fought the urge to raise his hand again, but after a moment's thought, he hesitated and lowered it. He turned to Qin Yue, essentially admitting defeat. Fine, forget it. I don't want it anymore. He grumbled. Qin Yue just smiled happily at him and said he'd made the right decision. Wazi wrinkled his nose, feeling strange. He couldn't understand why on earth he was listening to this kid. See, brother, I just saved you 18 million to... Qin Yue quipped, playing the part of a financial advisor. On stage, Doug Warner pointed towards the guests. Seeing no more bids, he pointed toward Hung Fee's subordinate and declared that the treasure now belonged to him. Hung Fee's subordinate was ecstatic. He looked incredibly satisfied and started celebrating like a madman. Yes, a great mysterious level skill. It's mine, he cheered. Meanwhile, Qin Yue leaned in close to Wasi and whispered a secret to him. He reminded him, "Do you remember what I told you earlier?" Then Qin Yue started to turn away, but glanced back to finish his sentence. "I'm staying at the largest inn in the Tianhai Empire. Remember to come find me. I'm leaving now." With that, he quickly departed from the Tianhai auction house. A little while later, Dugu Veneer slowly approached Qin Yue and politely apologized for keeping him waiting. Qin Yue shook his head slightly, his demeanor a bit cold. Weiner just smiled cheerfully. Qin Yue thanked her. Qin Yue put on an innocent face and said that all's fair in business, adding that he was surprised he'd gotten away with it for such a low price. Then crossing his arms and looking directly at Weiner, he asked a question. "So, Doug Weiner, are we friends now? Aren't you awfully grateful to me?" Hearing this, Weiner slowly leaned in, pressing her curvaceous body against Qin Yue. "Yes, I suppose I am. This is indeed a great favor," she purred with a playful pout. A devilish smile spread across Qin Yue's face. Seizing the opportunity, he wrapped an arm around Weiner's waist and pulled her closer. Weiner turned, beet red, completely flustered. Qin Yue looked into her eyes and asked, "Well, if that's the case, can I ask you for something?" Weiner, whose cheeks were now the color of a tomato, thought for sure something was about to happen. But Qin Yue quickly shattered the mood. Smiling, he said he wouldn't bother her any further. All he wanted was his item. Weiner thought to herself, "This Qin Yue really knows how to torture a woman. He reels you in just to throw you back out." Then Weiner took out a simple-looking ring. She cleared her throat with a small cough and said, "Everything is inside this ring. This storage item is a gift to you, young master, from the auction house." Qin Yue put the ring on, examined it, and was satisfied. A mid-grade royal storage item wasn't half bad. As he was leaving, Qin Yue remembered something. He turned and said something to Weiner that hinted at a storm on the horizon. "If Wang Shen ever invites you to explore the ancient ruins, be sure to let me know. Because I need to go there, too." Qin Yue waved goodbye and left, leaving Weiner staring in shock at his retreating figure. What could be the secret of these ancient ruins? And that Friends marks the explosive end of episode 1. The auction house drama is over. But the real story is just getting started. If you want to see how Qin Yue deals with these villains and puts them in their place, then smash that like button. Now, let's shoot for 3,000 likes. I know you all can make it happen. Subscribe and ring that bell so you'll be the first to know when episode 2 drops. And comment below to let me know your guess who will be Qin Yue's next victim. Wang Shan or Hung Fi, I'll see you in episode 2 where the real chaos begins. Until then, take care, end. The main street of Tianhe City was so crowded there was hardly any room to stand. But amidst the throng, Qin Yue walked as if the world was his personal courtyard. Although his body was there, his mind was traveling back in time, diving into the memories of his past life. A scene flashed before his eyes the first time he met Dugu Veneer, right after she had returned from the ancient ruins. The memory pierced his heart like a thorn. He recalled that horrible time when Wang Shan hatched a wicked plot against Dugu Veneer in the ancient ruins. By taking advantage of her desperate situation, he had forced her to marry him, and after the wedding, Wang Shan revealed his true ugly nature. Dugu Veneer's life, which should have been beautiful, became a living hell worse than death. In his previous life, Qin Yue had been weak and helpless. He could only stand by and watch as she descended into that abyss. But this time, the story would be different. He made a silent vow that in this life, he would free her from that cage and return her to the open sky where she belonged. You see that determination in his eyes. That's what we call main character energy. Later that night, the city grew quiet. The door to the guest room in Tianhe City's largest inn was shut, but the scene inside was a raging furnace. Qin Yue's entire body was completely engulfed in the flames of the holy fire. He was wrapped in it completely. All over the room, glowing pills were scattered about, emanating an infinite energy that made the very air vibrate. Qin Yue's hands reached for the floating pills, and like a ravenous beast, he began to absorb them. If a normal martial artist had witnessed this, they would have had a heart attack on the spot. Typically, someone at the first level of the spiritual realm can only digest 1 pill at a time. Some of the more skilled folks might handle 3, and those who consider themselves heaven's chosen can barely manage 10 pills. But our boy Qin Yue was playing a different game entirely. Pounding his chest, he reminded himself that his body possessed an unmatched power that no one else had. For him, 10 or 20 pills were nothing. Even 150 felt like just an appetizer. Seriously, is this guy taking cultivation pills, or is he at the movies munching on popcorn? 150 pills? Does he have a stomach of steel? Or what? Qin Yue was deep in meditation. As he consumed the pills, his divine sense immediately began to absorb and integrate them. Finally, the moment arrived. The last dormant power sleeping inside him awakened, and the 9-footed golden bird spread its wings. Now it was time for the holy fire to take the stage. To fuel the flames, Qin Yue took even more pills. A massive source of energy was constantly flowing into his body. The room lit up with a brilliant light. His muscles tensed and swelled to the point that his clothes couldn't handle the pressure. With a loud rip, his clothes exploded into shreds and fell to the ground. You've got to be kidding me. He powers up and his shirt just rips off. This guy's definitely a fan of the Hulk. But the new breakthrough left Qin Yue's body completely drained of strength. A mark began to shine on his forehead between his eyebrows. It was the image of the 9-footed golden bird. He let out a deep breath, confirming that the 150 body-tempering pills had done their job. He had now stepped into the second layer of the spiritual realm. But the night was still young, and there was more work to be done. Qin Yue took out the primordial heavenly scripture and activated it with his divine power. He waved his finger in the air and tapped on the image of the 9-footed golden bird. Gradually, a faint shadow of the legendary bird materialized before him. It appeared before its master and bowed its head respectfully. Qin Yue moved his hands forward, and a small but extremely dangerous flame leaped out from the bird's mouth. The flame began to circle around Qin Yue's arm as if saluting him. A knowing glint flashed in Qin Yue's eyes. He watched the fire dance on his hand and smiled. This was the 9 Heavens mystic. Annihilation, flame. The fire on his hand flickered affectionately like a pet showing love to its owner. Without wasting any time, Qin Yue summoned 2 spears from his storage ring, his own trusty war god spear and the broken god spear he'd bought at the auction. He commanded his heavenly flame, "Go and merge these 2. Qin Yue's plan was simple. The 9 Heavens mystic annihilation flame can refine anything in the universe. Merging the broken celestial weapon into his war god spear would be a cakewalk for it. As the weapon's enhancement began, the very heavens changed color. Thunderclouds gathered and lightning began to strike. A brilliant beam of light tore through the roof of the inn, shot straight into the sky, and illuminated all of Qin He City as if it were daytime. Boom! The War God Spear's enhancement was a success. Its appearance had completely transformed. It was no longer just a spear, but a divine weapon, with the power to shatter the heavens and the earth. Qin Yue extended his hand and grasped his new War God Spear tightly. He could tell just by its touch that it had surpassed mortal limits and become a first-grade immortal weapon. Qin Yue estimated its new strength. He could now kill any enemy below the 5th layer of the spiritual realm in a single blow. His work finished, Qin Yue withdrew his flame. After such intense cultivation and weapon refining, his stamina was completely shot. He collapsed onto the bed and was dead asleep in an instant. Man, his battery went from 100 to 0 real quick. That guy falls asleep faster than a college student after finals. The moment his head hit the pillow, he was in the land of dreams. But while he slept, danger was lurking just outside. On the outskirts of the Qin He Empire, a magnificent palanquin was passing by. Suddenly, the bolt of lightning and the radiant light from the immortal weapon caught the attention of the man sitting inside. The curtain of the palanquin was lifted, and an old man peered outside. His eyes were instantly fixed on the light. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Could that really be the aura of a first-grade immortal weapon? A wicked glint of greed flashed in the old man's eyes. The wheels in his mind started turning. If a first-grade immortal weapon had truly appeared, then he had to have it no matter the cost. He decided then and there that a small place like Qin He City was not worthy of holding such a treasure. As he dropped the curtain, a devilishly cunning smile spread across his face. Looks like the old man's got some wicked intentions. At his age, he should be thinking about retirement, not plotting to steal a divine weapon. Looks like we found our hero's next victim. The scene then shifts to the Death Sect, where the atmosphere was exceptionally ominous today. The killing intent in the air was so heavy it was difficult to breathe. Darkness and fear permeated everything. A dim green firelight burning from 2 skulls overhead illuminated the scene, making it look like the set of a horror movie. Amidst the eerie lights, 2 figures, Vayu and Vasi, sat as still as statues. With their heads bowed respectfully, they were saluting their leader, Model. But the lines of worry on their faces were clearly visible. The person sitting before them, the leader of the Death Sect, was Siren, and their gaze alone would send shivers down anyone's spine. This person appeared neither entirely male nor female. Their aura was utterly strange and disorienting. Seriously, I wouldn't even know whether to call this person sir or ma'am. Siren put a hand to their chin, eyeing the 2 sisters, with sharp eyes like a predator, sizing up its prey. They reminded them of their past mistakes, pointing out how they'd first failed miserably trying to kill Jin King, and had now faced another major embarrassment at the Qin He auction. The question was simple. How should they be dealt with? Wasi was trembling, her heart pounding with fear. She placed her hands on her chest and in a trembling voice asked for her punishment without making any excuses. But then a strange girlish laugh escaped Siren's lips. It turned out to be all an act. Siren slowly, with a loving or perhaps menacing touch, lifted Vu's chin with their hand. They lovingly revealed that they had raised both sisters since childhood. If they'd raised them with their own hands, how could they possibly punish them? This was the kind of love you see in a true crime documentary, right before everything takes a very dark turn. Suddenly their focus fixed on wuxia and a devilish smile spread across their face. All that affection was just for show. In reality, a new mission had arrived, and their eyes made it clear that failure this time would have dire consequences. Hearing this, the worry on the sisters' faces deepened. One of them immediately asked, "Leader, what is your order?" Siren lifted their head and revealed the secret. The person who ruined their last mission was none other than Qin Yue, the same descendant of the Divine Sword dynasty who was raised by the Legion. Now he's hiding in the Qin He Empire to save his own skin. But the twist was that Immortal Glen had given a direct order: Qin Yue must be found at all costs, and the most important condition was to bring him back alive. They handed this delicate task over to the two sisters. Upon receiving the mission, both sisters bowed their heads and accepted the order, knowing it was dangerous to linger. So they used teleportation and vanished in the blink of an eye. They pieced out faster than free samples disappear at Costco. As soon as they left, Siren's true colors came out. They began muttering in anger that the two were utterly useless and couldn't handle a simple task, regretting all the years they had wasted on them. They covered their terrifying face with a hand, already calculating that if the sisters failed this time, a new plan would be necessary. It would be time to train new disciples. Finally, they spread their hands and opened a portal in midair to their secret hideout. The next morning in Qin City, a huge commotion shattered the peace outside. Zhou Dian was standing at Qin Yue's door, acting like a human alarm clock and screaming his name loudly enough to wake the dead. After a while, our hero stumbled out, letting out a massive yawn. His eyes were still heavy with sleep, and his hair was a mess. Like a lazy lion, Qin Yue wearily scratched his head and looked at the screaming disaster in front of him, Zhou Yue. He looked at her carefully, a question written all over his face. What on earth could be so urgent this early in the morning? Without wasting a moment, Zhou Yue pointed a finger at him like an exasperated spouse and declared that Qin Yue's living arrangements were changing, effective immediately. He would no longer be staying in this cheap inn, but at his Grandpa Zan King's mansion. Qin Yue's sleepiness vanished in an instant, replaced by that famous devilish smirk of his. He didn't miss the chance to tease Zhou Yue playfully, asking if she was already missing her future husband so much that she wanted to take him home. Look at the confidence on this guy. The girl is furious and he's busy flirting. Hearing this, Zhou Yue was still angry, but her cheeks turned red as a tomato with embarrassment. A mix of panic and anger, she started stomping her feet and shouting. She reminded Qin Yue what a huge mess he'd made at the auction yesterday. First, he'd picked a fight with a subordinate of Empress Consort Wang Fai. Then he offended Wang Xuan of the Divine Sword Sect. These weren't some small-time thugs. Qin Yue had made enemies of both of them. But Qin Yue was completely unfazed. He just laughed loudly and, as if explaining something to a child, patted Zhou Yue on the head. According to him, as long as he was around, those petty villains wouldn't dare to cause trouble again. They won't even dare to stand up to him. Zhou Yue's temper reached its boiling point. Screaming, she dropped another bombshell. It wasn't just the local goons. The Death Sect had also taken a mission from the Immortal Clan to kill him. This meant the shadow of death was hovering everywhere, and this guy was busy cracking jokes. Qin Yue ignored all these warnings the same way we all skip YouTube ads. He placed a hand firmly on Zhou Yue's shoulder, looked her in the eye, and asked that if he wasn't afraid, then why was she so worried? Forget the fear. Today's plan was simply to explore Qin City. Zhou Yue frowned. She was angry, but deep down, Qin Yue's carefree attitude also made her feel safe. Giving in, the two of them set off to tour the city. The atmosphere lightened up a bit. They enjoyed some food. From a roadside stall, watched a street magician's tricks, and moved on. They strolled down the main street of Qin City with Qin Yue walking like he owned the place. Eventually, their walk took them to the middle of a bridge. They'd arrived, but their path was blocked. Someone was already there. Zhou Yue stopped in his tracks, wondering who would be surrounding a bridge like this. A girl stood before them, exhaling a long puff of smoke that formed a perfect ring in the air. That style, that flair, it could only be Dugu Wanner from the auction house, and wow, her figure and that ample chest. A sight like that could make even the most devout man's faith waver. Cameraman, please focus. Yes, this is strictly for educational purposes. Zhou Yue recognized Dugu Wanner instantly. However, this was the first time he'd ever seen her this close. Her beauty left even him stunned. Qin Yue, on the other hand, immediately zoned in on Wanner's killer curves. He then glanced over at Zhou Yue, a quick comparison running through his mind before he shot her a joking look. Without saying a word, his expression made it clear the competition was fierce. In other words, Wanner's assets were quite impressive. Zhou Yue immediately knew what Qin Yue was looking at. Blushing with embarrassment and anger, she covered her chest with her hands and shouted at him to knock it off. Putting on an innocent act, Qin Yue stepped forward and politely greeted Dugu Wanner as she approached. Wanner didn't see the need for formal introductions as she had already met Princess Zhou Yue and young Master Qin Yue. Zhou Yue also quickly switched into a friendly mode. Smiling at Wanner, she called her Big Sister Wanner to create a sense of familiarity. Wanner happily returned the sentiment, calling Zhou Yue Little Sister, and accepting their new bond. Then Wanner's eyes focused on Qin Yue, her expression turning a bit more serious. She got straight to the point. The leaders of the Death Sect and the Immortal Clan had issued a mission to their disciples. They were to hunt down Qin Yue. It was no idle warning. But Qin Yue, as cool as ever, simply dusted off his hands. He calmly stated that he had already anticipated this. This was nothing new to him. It was just a minor inconvenience. Hearing this, Wanner felt that her work here was done. She asked for their leave, not wanting to disturb the two lovebirds. But just then the story took a twist. Zhou He suddenly stepped forward and grabbed Wanner's hand, insisting that since she was already here, she might as well join them for a walk. After all, Zhou Yue added, she still didn't know her way around Qin City very well. Qin Yue leaned back with his hands behind his head, nodding eagerly as if this was exactly what he'd been hoping for. Zhou Yue is absolutely right, he chimed in. And then Qin Yue did what every guy dreams of doing. He shamelessly stepped forward, stretched out both arms, and wrapped one around Zhou Yue's waist and the other around Dugu Wanner's. Both girls froze as if they'd been struck by lightning, their faces turning beet red. Qin Yue just laughed and said, "Let's all go together, haha." Wanner's cheeks were burning with embarrassment. She shot Qin Yue a sideways glance, thinking how utterly shameless he was, but she didn't push his hand away. With a beautiful girl on each arm, Qin Yue strode forward like an emperor and bellowed, "Let's go!" The surrounding crowd was stunned by the scene. Onlookers stopped in their tracks, causing a traffic jam as whispers rippled through the crowd. People couldn't believe their eyes. Isn't that Princess Zhou Yue and Dugu Wanner? And who is that guy walking around with two of the top-tier beauties in the city, Why? Everyone started pointing, saying, "That's him, that's the arrogant young man who put all the city's big shots in their place yesterday." When Qin Yue heard this, he took a deep, satisfied breath. He realized that hanging out with such high-profile people had boosted his reputation in the city far more than he'd expected. Dugu Wanner, however, thought he might be getting uncomfortable. So she laughed and comforted him, telling him not to be nervous, but Zhou Yue, who was already familiar with his personality, knew better. She immediately cleared up Wanner's misunderstanding, explaining that this guy wasn't scared at all. In fact, he was basking in the limelight. Just then a commotion erupted in the crowd ahead. Shouts and the sharp crack of a whip slicing through the air caught everyone's attention. Qin Yue turned his head to look, and the scene was gut-wrenching. A portly man was whipping a frail young demon girl as if she were an animal. The fat man was seething, calling the girl a vile beast and cursing at her for trying to run away. The marks from the whip were already clearly visible on her body. She collapsed to the ground, groaning in pain. But the cruel man's assault didn't stop. He threatened through gritted teeth that since he had paid for her, he could kill her and dispose of the trash whenever he pleased. Dugu Wanner recognized the man instantly. "That's Li Qing He," she said, "and this is exactly his style. He's just testing his strength on one of his newly purchased slaves." Zhou Yue's blood began to boil. As a princess, she could not tolerate such oppression. She glared at Li Qing He and swore an oath to herself that if not today, then someday, she would completely uproot the entire slave trade from the xianxia dynasty. Wanner explained in a pragmatic tone that Li Qing He was notoriously arrogant and cruel. He has connections to the royal family's alchemy sect. That's why he can do whatever he wants out in the open. He's been carrying on like this for the past month, and no one dares to raise their voice against him. Zhou Yue clenched her fists. She was furious at her own helplessness. "Is there really no one in this city who can stop this animal?" she asked. Wanner could only shake her head regretfully. "Those people are his household slaves. According to the law, outsiders are not allowed to interfere." So this fat oaf basically bought a license to torture people. Wow, what a law. Meanwhile, Li Qing He's abuse showed no sign of stopping. Every time the poor girl tried to stand up, he would whip her back down. Li Qing He sneered, taunting that he'd paid good money to feed her to his whip. Despite the supposed favor of being kept alive, the demon girl had tried to escape and was now in terrible shape. Blood trickled from her mouth, but her spirit remained unbroken. Stumbling to her feet, she glared defiantly into Li Qing He's eyes. She declared that even in death, she would haunt him like a ghost for slaughtering her entire clan. Her defiance wounded Li Qing He's ego. Enraged, he delivered a brutal kick to her stomach. He laughed, admitting he had killed her clan because they were useless. He added that if she weren't so beautiful, he would have killed her along with them. He shamelessly boasted about spending 2 whole silver coins to buy her, calling it a huge favor that would bless 8 generations of her family. Just 2 coins, man. You can barely get a decent burger for that much these days. And this guy's putting a price on a human life. Lei Pengji stepped forward, grabbed the chain around the girl's neck, and viciously yanked her head up. He threatened that if she ever tried to escape again, he would make her suffer a fate worse than death. It was then that he mentioned her name, Ji Ruyu. As soon as Qin Yue heard it, a bell went off in his head. Shocked, he glanced at his companion to confirm if he'd heard correctly. She nodded, confused by his intense reaction. A sly, calculating smile spread across Qin Yue's face. He never expected to stumble upon such a rare find just by walking down the street. When his companion saw that mischievous grin, she knew exactly what was about to happen. Whenever this boy smiled like that, it meant something big and dangerous was about to go down. This was more than just saving a girl. He knew her future. If she wasn't saved today, she would one day be responsible for the deaths of thousands. Looks like our boy is putting his knowledge of the future to good use. This girl is destined to become a major threat to humanity. But our hero is here to change her fate. Meanwhile, Lei Pengji, bored with his captive, began venting his anger on the crowd. He yelled at the onlookers, demanding to know what they were staring at. Just then, Ji Ruyu, still on the ground, glared up at him. The sheer hatred and killing intent in her eyes was so potent that it momentarily startled the fat man. Lei Pengji's pride was stung. He couldn't believe he was being intimidated by a mere slave. Turning his fear into rage, he cracked his whip and ordered her to kneel immediately. He threatened to kill her on the spot if she refused, but that whip was never going to land because our god of war was making his entrance. Qin Yue fearlessly stepped forward and caught the mountain-like man's wrist, stopping the whip in midair. Lei Pengji was stunned. He stared at Qin Yue with wide eyes, demanding to know who had the death wish to interfere with his affairs. Qin Yue calmly released the man's wrist, as if he were discarding trash, and politely stated his intention to buy the girl. "Just name your price," he offered. But Lei Pengji was still drunk on his own arrogance. He flatly refused, shouting that the girl wasn't for sale and ordering Qin Yue to get lost. But Qin Yue wasn't backing down. He gestured toward the demon girl and prepared to use Lei Pengji's own logic against him. He argued that since Lei Pengji had bought the girl by force, he would now do the same. Lei Pengji clearly had no idea who he was dealing with. He clutched his stomach and roared with laughter, as if he'd just heard the funniest joke of his life. Then, gritting his teeth, he threatened Qin Yue, telling the young brat to run along while he still could, or else face some nasty consequences. Qin Yue just gave a slow nod, that famous slanted smile appearing on his face. "If that's how it's going to be," he said, "then our peaceful negotiations are over." Before Lei Pengji's mind could even process the words, Qin Yue's palm strike sliced through the air and connected squarely with his gut. Boom. With just that one light touch, the massive man was sent flying backward like a punctured balloon, soaring several yards before smashing into the city wall. The man broke the wall. Our hero just broke the laws of physics. A guy that heavy just flew like a paper airplane. The mouths of the surrounding crowd dropped wide open. Some people were thrilled to finally see the cruel bully get his comeuppance. Others were worried, knowing this young man had just picked a fight with a member of the powerful artifact refining sect. As for the demon girl, Ji Ruyu, she could only stare in utter amazement. She couldn't understand why this stranger was fighting for her. When Lei Pengji crawled out from the rubble, he looked like a wounded animal completely consumed by the flames of his rage. Without wasting a moment, he let out a furious curse and began to channel his energy. In an instant, the spectral image of a giant boar materialized above him. The image roared with fury. Gathering all his divine power, he prepared his ultimate attack. He activated his yellow rank martial skill, Wild Boar Fist, and charged directly at Qin Yue, his every step shaking the earth. Qin Yue watched him approach with a serious expression. Then lightning seemed to flash in his eyes as a tremendous energy erupted from his body. This energy formed a powerful shield around him. Lei Pengji charged at full speed and without even hitting the brakes, slammed headfirst into the barrier. With a dull thud, Lei Pengji bounced off, spitting a mouthful of blood. Qin Yue then unleashed a burst of divine power that sent him flying straight up into the air. The poor guy went screaming as he was launched skyward. Watching him fall, Qin Yue mused to himself that the so-called Wild Boar Fist was actually a wildly boring fist. But he just received a thorough beatdown, and you can practically see the sizzle. Talk about getting your bacon fried. Our boy here fried him up without any oil. Once the fight was over, Qin Yue casually approached the demon girl, looking as regal as ever. He placed a hand gently on her head and announced that from this day forward she was his. Qin Yue then unleashed his divine power, healing her wounds and shattering the chains that bound her. Zhou Dian stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. The light from the broken slave contract and chains illuminated the entire area, a truly dazzling sight. Watching this, Qin Yue stroked her chin thoughtfully. She had to admit to herself that this Qin Yue fellow was a truly interesting person, but standing next to him, she couldn't help but feel a little worried. She was afraid that if Huang Fei ever found out about this, he'd practically die from a rage-induced stroke. Still, she had to agree that Li Pengji got what he deserved, and Qin Yue had performed a noble deed. Qin Yue suddenly swept Zhou Dian into his arms and with the air of a king began to walk away. The four of them then departed from the scene. As they left, the crowd behind was still buzzing, wondering what had just happened and who that white-haired cultivator was that gave Li Pengji such a beating. On the way, Qin Yue asked Qin Yue what his plans were for the girl. Warner also offered that if she had nowhere to go, she could stay temporarily at the Qin He auction hall. But our master strategist Qin Yue already had a plan forming in his mind. He simply reassured them not to worry about a thing. Everything would be taken care of. As they walked, Qin Yue studied Zhou Dian and instantly recognized it. The girl possessed ancient demon blood. That explains it. Qin Yue gave Qin Yue a suspicious look, thinking to herself that maybe he just had a thing for this type of girl. Qin Yue glanced back at Qin Yue and scoffed, "What would you know, this girl is going to make a huge name for herself in the future." By name, he was, of course, thinking about money. In his mind, he knew the truth. This was Zhou Dian, the future demon, venerable, a terrifying entity destined to command millions of demon beasts. She would lead them to cleanse the human territories, her deep-seated hatred fueled by years of slavery. But he thought, I'm going to change that history. He'd just adopted the future final boss while she was still a kid. Now that's what you call nipping the problem in the bud. Qin Yue noticed the girl's tattered clothes and decided that simply wouldn't do. Warner immediately suggested they visit Yangganwu Tower, the largest merchant guild in the city. A short while later, they arrived at Yangganwu Tower, where a sales girl at the entrance immediately recognized Warner. But Warner gestured toward Qin Yue, indicating he was the one shopping today. The salesgirl led them inside, while Warner and Qin Yue waited outside. And as luck would have it, Huang Fei was there too. He was there admiring his dream purchase, the 9-colored eagle dance costume. He was already ecstatic, but then he spotted Qin Yue and practically jumped for joy. He rushed over, telling her all about the costume, explaining that it's an extremely valuable piece, made only once a year. He planned to gift it to her, hoping to finally win her over. But Qin Yue just wrinkled her nose in distaste and flat out refused. Just then, a commotion started up on the floor above them, drawing everyone's attention. People were shouting that it was the 9-colored eagle dance costume, and then Qin Yue made his grand entrance, walking out slowly, with Zhou Dian, who was now wearing that very same priceless outfit. Huang Fei's jaw hit the floor, and it stayed there. Even he had to admit the girl looked absolutely stunning. Qin Yue was also full of praise, asking in surprise how he managed to get it so quickly. Qin Yue just shrugged innocently and replied, "It was just a dress." But the moment Huang Fei snapped out of his daze, he was absolutely livid. This was the costume he had been dreaming of buying. Screaming, he charged up the stairs toward Qin Yue, claiming he had his eye on that outfit first. Qin Yue leaned in, staring down at Huang Fei with a look that just screamed, "And what are you going to do about it?" Huang Fei insisted he wanted the costume back. He asked Qin Yue to name his price, claiming he wasn't trying to bully him, just trying to reclaim what was rightfully his. Qin Yue flashed a devilish smile and began to state his price. He pointed a finger at Huang Fei and made his demand. He wanted his entire artifact refining set in exchange. Our boy demanded a whole estate for a single dress. That's what you call negotiation skills. Hearing this from downstairs, Zhou Dian, Qin Yue, and Warner had to stifle their laughter. They knew right away that Qin Yue was just messing with him. Huang Fei completely lost his mind. He angrily grabbed Qin Yue by the collar and shouted, "Are you trying to drive me insane?" Qin Yue calmly placed a reassuring hand on Zhou Yu's head, then turned back to Huang Fei. Leaning in close, he made it crystal clear, "Yes, I am provoking you. So tell me, what are you going to do about it?" Enraged, Huang Fei unleashed his full divine power and roared that Qin Yue had finally gone too far. At that very moment, shouts were heard from a distance. A young master, decked out in fancy robes, came running in completely out of breath. Huang Fei looked over and saw it was his #1 bootlicker, Li Pengji, clutching his stomach and running for his dear life. Looking as if he'd been chased by a wild beast, Li Pengji ran right up to Huang Fei and started crying, wailing that someone had beaten him to a pulp. "And they even took my servants," he cried. He didn't stop there. He started emotionally blackmailing Huang Fei, claiming that since he was his right-hand man, this attack was a direct slap in the face to Huang Fei himself. Huang Fei stared at him with wide-eyed disbelief and asked what kind of nonsense he was spouting. All the while, Qin Yue stood nearby, thoroughly enjoying the spectacle. Seeing the perfect opportunity, Qin Yue gently placed a hand on Huang Fei's shoulder, leaned in, and innocently confessed, "That would be me. I'm the one who beat up your boy." Talk about putting your hand directly into the lion's mouth. Our main character has some serious nerve. To recap, the goon stands before the villain admitting, "Yes, brother, he's the one who beat me." But what's a villain to do? The moment Li Pangji spoke, Qin Yue recognized his voice and immediately jumped to his feet. He pointed a finger, confirming with a shout that this was the guy, the very same bastard who had beaten him up and taken his people. Hearing this, Huang Fei's anger shot through the roof. He whirled around and glared at Qin Yue like he wanted to eat him alive. He stated clearly that he was only showing Qin Yue respect because of Zhou Yue and wanted to save a little face for her. But Qin Yue seemed hell-bent on humiliating him again and again. Huang Fei looked at Zhou Yue and, apologizing in advance, announced that today this boy would not be leaving alive. But how could Zhou Yue possibly remain silent? She clasped her hands and, frowning, assured Huang Fei that she would go to the Zhan King's mansion to discuss the matter. Furious, Huang Fei shouted, asking if she was really going to put her family on the line for a guy like this. It was then that Zhou Yue looked Huang Fei straight in the eye and said something that shocked everyone there. She declared in no uncertain terms that Qin Yue was her future husband. Oof, emotional damage. Our boy Huang Fei just got hit with his villain origin story. In that single moment, his heart, hopes, and ego all shattered into a million pieces. Upon hearing her words, Huang Fei went completely berserk with rage. But he knew he couldn't do anything right then and there. He shot a glare at Zhou Yue, turned on his heel, and started to storm off. But before leaving, he made sure to throw out a threat, warning her not to get too clever. He snarled that when his master arrives, not even the Zhan King's mansion would be able to save Qin Yue. Huang Fei left, because he knew this wasn't the right time or place to get his revenge. But Li Pangji, who clearly isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, saw his master leaving empty-handed. He started pleading and blocking the way, asking how he could just let Qin Yue go. What would happen to their reputation? How could they possibly show their faces in public again? Li Pangji hadn't even finished his whining when he got decked, and this time the punch didn't come from an enemy, it came from Huang Fei himself. Poor Li Pangji went flying through the air like a cartoon character slamming into a wall before falling unconscious. The poor guy got beaten up by the hero, and now he's getting clobbered by the villain. His life has become a soccer ball. Everyone who comes along just gives him a kick and moves on. Once everything had calmed down, Zhou Yue looked at Qin Yue with concern. She warned him that Huang Fei's master, the Qi immortal ancestor, would be arriving soon. In response, Qin Yue just gave her a bright smile. He assured her that everything was fine and that he already had a plan. Then all of a sudden, he remembered something. He placed a hand on his chest and announced that since both girls were with him today, they should buy whatever their hearts desired. His treat. Zhao Yue's and Wanner's eyes sparkled with excitement as they asked in surprise if he was being serious. With a grand flourish, Qin Yue pointed right at Zhao Yue and dropped a bombshell that left her completely stunned. She would be footing the entire bill. Wow, what an absolute genius. First he says, "The party's on me," and then he hands the bill to the girl. This move is popularly known as the reverse sugar daddy. After a night of shopping, Zhao Yue and Wanner escorted Qin Yue back to the Tianhe Inn. Wanner gave Qin Yue a careful look before she left. After saying her goodbyes, Zhao Yue pointed a stern finger at Qin Yue and warned him not to try anything funny with the new girl, Ruoyu. Qin Yue just patted Ruoyu's head and asked innocently, "Do I really seem like that kind of guy to you?" Zhao Yue blushed and didn't say another word. She quickly turned and headed back toward the Zhan King's mansion. After that, Qin Yue took Ruoyu to her room so she could get some rest. While he was getting her settled in, Ruoyu finally broke her silence. She asked the question that had been eating her up inside: why did Qin Yue buy her? Continuing what he was doing, Qin Yue gave a profound reply saying that not everything in this world has a why. She should just know that there are still plenty of good people like him out there. With that, he waved his hand and left the room, telling her to get some sleep, and that he'd be right in the room next door. Closing the door behind him, he walked off lost in deep thought. He thought to himself that he just needed to be patient and wait for the moment Ruoyu's bloodline would awaken within him. Meanwhile, over at the artifact refining sect, a frustrated and furious Huang Fei stood before his father. He was ranting endlessly about Qin Yue. He muttered angrily, thinking how the mere sight of Qin Yue made his blood boil. His father, Huang Ting, the sect leader, scolded him and told him to be quiet. He explained that it was shameful to get so worked up over some insignificant boy. Huang Fei immediately bowed his head respectfully and admitted his mistake. Huang Ting, seated on his high throne, said there was no need to worry. He explained that in 3 days, Huang Fei's master would arrive in Tianhe City, and then Zhao Yue would definitely be in their grasp. He also reminded him that the Holy Fire Grand competition was fast approaching, which was far more important. Huang Fei put a fist to his forehead and promised with full confidence that he would secure a top position in the competition this time. Hearing this, the old man Huang Ting let out a hearty laugh. He happily announced that with his master's backing, if Huang Fei won the Holy Fire Grand competition, their sect would completely take over the Tianhe dynasty in the near future. They would be able to do whatever they wanted, and no one would have the courage to stop them. The standard villain monologue, we will rule the world. But in the end, the hero always shows up to shatter their dreams and break their bones. In the dead of night, Qin Yue was resting in his room at the largest inn in Tianhe City, when suddenly he heard a rustling sound from outside. 2 shadows leaped from the roof, and one of the female assassins moved in swiftly to kill Qin Yue. But just as the tip of her sword reached Qin Yue's throat, it froze in midair, hovering just inches away. Then Qin Yue opened his eyes and calmly asked why they weren't attacking. Both female assassins were stunned to realize he had only been pretending to be asleep. They immediately withdrew their swords. Qin Yue sat up, yawned, and started to poke fun at them. He started teasing them, asking if they felt hot or uncomfortable wearing masks on their faces in the middle of the night. In a panic, the 2 assassins removed their masks, revealing themselves to be none other than the sisters Wuya and Yue. Wuya asked directly if Qin Yue had already detected them. Qin Yue calmly turned his head and looked at the 2 peerless beauties. He replied with a mischievous smile, saying that with 2 such beautiful women standing by his bed in the middle of the night, how could he possibly sleep? Dude, how can you be so smooth? Death is literally standing right in front of him, and this guy's hitting on them. I need a shot of that confidence, but Wuya didn't appreciate the joke. She quickly drew her sword, and in the next moment, its cold edge was resting on Qin Yue's neck. Keeping her sword perfectly steady, she looked Qin Yue in the eye and threatened him. She told him that if he knew who they were, he should also know why they had come. Not a hint of fear appeared on Qin Yue's face. He remained completely calm and coolly told them to stop pretending because he couldn't feel any killing intent coming from their bodies. The other woman broke her silence. She was surprised that Qin Yue knew about the death sentence hanging over them. How did he know what she was just about to say? Qin Yue's expression turned a little more serious. Slowly, and without a trace of fear, he pushed Wuya's sword away from his throat with a single finger and said it seemed they had done their own investigation and figured out the truth. Wuya and Yue fell silent. They understood that they couldn't defeat Qin Yue in a battle of wits. Qin Yue looked at the 2 sisters carefully and said that how he knew all this didn't matter. What mattered was that the death sect was not a good place, and it wasn't too late for them to get back on the right path. The sadness in Wuya's eyes was plain to see. She explained her helplessness, saying that leaving the death sect wasn't that easy. They had a unique mark on their bodies. She said that as long as the mark was there, she couldn't rebel even if she wanted to. She added with dismay that to remove the mark, one would need at least a 6th grade silver fire or higher, which is almost impossible to get. Hearing this, Qin Yue leaped out of bed as if he had been struck by lightning. He went straight over and stood before the sisters. Surprised, they looked at him with wide eyes, wondering what he was about to do. Without a word of explanation, Qin Yue stepped forward, took Wuya's hand, and pulled her closer to him. Wuya got scared and shouted angrily, "What is this idiot trying to do?" Qin Yue didn't offer any clarification. He simply activated his divine power. He looked at her with intense eyes and said he was going to remove the death sect's ominous mark from her body. The very next moment, a 9-footed golden bird made of holy fire materialized and entered her body. Wuya immediately began to feel the massive energy of the golden bird. With her divine consciousness, she could clearly see the golden bird inside her body. It was burning the death sect's mark from her soul. In just a short while, all the yin energy in her body evaporated into smoke. It vanished, and she staggered back weakly. Exhausted, she looked at Qin Yue with a wrinkled brow and asked in shock if he really possessed a 6th grade holy fire. A slanted smile appeared on Qin Yue's face. He looked at Wuya and said something that would crush any cultivator's ego. 6th grade, you're thinking too small. What if I told you I've reached the 9th grade holy fire? Boom, mic drop. This guy straight up said, we don't talk in levels. We play in God mode, son. Wuya's eyes widened until they looked like they might tear. She stared at Qin Yue as if a god had just descended to earth. The words 9th grade holy fire left her completely speechless. Then Qin Yue turned to Yue and said it was her turn. Shortly after, all the yin energy disappeared from Yue's body as well. She lifted her hand to check and was overjoyed. She was so delighted that her mark had disappeared too. Qin Yue withdrew his holy fire and the golden bird, declaring that they were now both free. The death sect's control over them was broken forever. The sisters' happiness knew no bounds. The two sisters hugged each other tightly. For them, this was nothing short of a dream come true. Seeing his chance, Qin Yue put the question to them, "Are you both ready to follow me and surrender yourselves to me from now on?" The two sisters looked at each other, then knelt down, bowed their heads before Qin Yue, and swore their allegiance. Look at that. A new team is formed. He's got 2 S-rank assassins in his pocket now. After this, Qin Yue switched into teacher mode. He looked at wuxia and told her that her cultivation technique had many flaws. She was using a low-grade mystic level technique, but the output was only at the mortal level. He ordered her to perfect this technique starting today. Qin Yue placed his finger on wuxia's forehead and transmitted a new martial arts technique to her. Holding the 9th grade holy fire, he explained that Vasi's current cultivation was only at level 2 of the spiritual realm, so she couldn't learn many powerful martial arts techniques yet. However, as soon as she reached level 3, Qin Yue promised to gift her a mid-grade mystic level martial arts set. Vasi clenched her fists happily and thanked him from the bottom of her heart. Then Qin Yue asked Wu Yue about her sun-chasing divine arrow. Wu Yue immediately took out the arrow and presented it to Qin Yue. Qin Yue used the 9th grade holy fire to enhance the weapon and taught Wu Yue a new skill. He told her he was giving her a low-grade mystic level martial arts set that she could combine with her arrows to maximize their power. Wu Yue felt the new martial art was perfectly suited for her body, encircling her divine weapon from within and making it much more powerful than before. In just a short time, Wu Yue successfully mastered the new martial arts technique and integrated it with her sun-chasing divine arrow. Filled with hope and surprise, she looked up and asked Qin Yue where all these divine abilities and powerful martial arts came from. He explained that he'd acquired them from the great wilderness monarch. Qin Yue just gave them a mysterious smile and said that if fate allowed it, he would explain everything in detail in the future. But then a devilish grin spread across Qin Yue's face, the kind that could make even the most composed person blush. He said in a suggestive tone that since the night was still young, why shouldn't they take this opportunity to relax together? Folks, the atmosphere just got spicy. The poor sisters were absolutely mortified by his implication. Their cheeks flushed tomato red with embarrassment as they stared at Qin Yue in a panic, but Qin Yue just bowed before the two sisters and burst out laughing. He teased them, clarifying they shouldn't let their minds wander. He simply meant that they should both go to another room to rest and let him get some sleep as well. Both sisters breathed a huge sigh of relief. Although their hearts were still racing, they bowed to Qin Yue and asked for permission to leave. Once they had both left, Qin Yue relaxed and flopped onto the bed, but sleep was far from his mind. He stared at the ceiling, planning his next moves. He remembered that the day of the immortal ancestor Ji's arrival was drawing near, and with it, Tongzhou City's biggest event would start the Holy Fire Grand Competition. Qin Yue laid out a mental roadmap. The competition was held every 3 years. It was organized and sponsored jointly by the 4 major sects of Tongzhou City. Their goal was to find the most promising disciples and train them to become powerful alchemists. These 4 major sects were the Sacred Heart Palace, the Extreme Sunset Sect, the Emotionless Sword Sect, and the Jade Maiden Sect. These 4 sects kept each other in check, maintaining a balance of power. Even the great immortal ancestor Ji himself had once secured first place in this very competition. In fact, his current prestige was built upon that victory. The cultivation levels of these sect leaders were immeasurably high, but Qin Yue wasn't interested in fame or glory. His eyes were fixed on the grand prize for the winner, the Dragon Tiger Pill. This was no ordinary pill. It was a 4th grade great pill jointly created by the 4 major sects. Qin Yue's eyes lit up just thinking about the pill. It contained so much spiritual energy that it could help him break through to the 5th level of the spiritual realm in an instant. And as soon as he reached the 5th level, Qin Yue clenched his fist. That would be the moment he could finally unlock his 3rd spirit beast, the High Lion Dragon. Qin Yue recalled the Lion Dragon's immense power. The Lion Dragon's illusionary form would grant him a nearly infinite source of divine power. Its strength was soul-penetrating and its defense was impenetrable. At that point, Qin Yue's combat power would be equivalent to someone at the peak of the spiritual realm. A wave of fierce determination washed over him. He swore that would be the moment he'd return to the Divine Sword Dynasty and get revenge for the Qin family. In his mind, he warned Zhou Dian and the entire immortal clan that their days were numbered. Their time was running out. The scene shifts to the streets of Tongzhou City, where the excitement for the Holy Fire competition was already in the air. The streets were surging with people, and Qin Yue was part of the crowd, slowly taking in the sights. Even though the competition hadn't started, the entire city was decorated like a festival. Suddenly, the sound of galloping horses echoed through the street. People shouted in excitement as a royal and luxurious carriage passed by. Word spread that experts from the Sacred Heart Palace had arrived, and this time their very own holy maiden, Li Qing He, had come with them. The crowd went wild, everyone desperate to get a glimpse. Then, the curtain of the carriage was slowly drawn back. There sat the holy maiden of the Sacred Heart Palace, Li Qing He. The crowd was mesmerized by her beauty. Some called her an angel, while others called her the woman of their dreams. Suddenly, Li Qing He's gaze swept across the crowd and fell upon a lone boy standing apart from the rest, Qin Yue. Without hesitation, Qin Yue raised his hand and waved to her warmly, as if greeting an old friend. He thought to himself that it had been a long time since he'd last seen Li Qing He. But the next moment, Qin Yue's hand froze in midair, and he quickly lowered his head. He remembered that this was his new life, not his past. In this timeline, Li Qing He didn't know him at all. She just saw that this boy in the crowd seemed different from the others waving at her as if they were old acquaintances. She was a little confused. She thought that his face looked somewhat familiar. Inside the carriage, an old woman, Elder Yu, angrily dropped the curtain. With a grimace, she muttered that he must be some kind of street-smart womanizer. Changing the subject. Elder Yu wrinkled her brow and reminded her companion that their purpose this time wasn't just to watch the competition. She explained that the winner of the Holy Fire Grand Competition would have to be recruited into their Sacred Heart Palace. Hearing this, a young woman named Lang looked a little sad. Lang murmured that she would carry out her father's orders and do her best. Elder Yu placed a reassuring hand on hers, explaining that the winner of this competition was bound to be an exceptionally talented individual. She added that if the winner is a man becoming the Sacred Heart Palace's son-in-law, wouldn't be as terrible as Lang seemed to think. Lang fell deep into thought but immediately rejected the idea. She stated firmly that she had no intention of selling herself off to anyone. Just as Elder Yu was about to say more, Lang cut her off. Concluding the conversation, she said, "Let's visit the Zhou King's mansion first." With that, their royal carriage sped toward its destination. A new drama was already waiting for them there. A short while later, the royal carriage of the Sacred Heart Palace slowly pulled to a stop at the entrance of the Zhou King's mansion. Parting the curtain, Lang stepped down from the carriage with remarkable grace and elegance. But she had barely set foot on the ground when a sharp voice cut in. A man stepped forward, his face filled with pride and his eyes burning with hatred. It was Chulin, a disciple of the extreme Sunset sect. He immediately began to taunt them, sneering, "So this is how low the Sacred Heart Palace is willing to stoop to scout for talent. You've even put your holy maiden on display." Lang responded calmly, but her tone was ice cold. She reminded him that it seemed the lesson she'd taught him last time wasn't enough, considering his mouth was still so foul. To hide his embarrassment, Chulin put on an arrogant front, claiming that last time he had simply gone easy on her because she was a woman. He told her not to get a big head over it. Lang just gave him a look like he was trash on the side of the road, and without a word, gestured for Elder Yu to proceed. They walked straight toward the Zhou King's mansion, leaving Chulin with his ego thoroughly bruised. "How dare they!" he shouted in fury at being so blatantly ignored and humiliated. Suddenly, Chulin's eyes landed on a boy. The boy was walking confidently into the king's mansion without any hesitation. This was, of course, our hero Qin Yue. Chulin was lost in thought. He wondered who this guy was strolling in with so much confidence. Qin Yue, meanwhile, took in the scene and gave Lang's group a friendly greeting. In a friendly manner, he mentioned that he was also here to see the Zhou King. He then offered to guide them inside, saying he was very familiar with the mansion. Elder Yu eyed Qin Yue suspiciously from head to toe, thinking he was just some street urchin who had followed them here. At that moment, Chulin burst out laughing. Taking advantage of the situation, he clapped a hand on Qin Yue's shoulder and made a crude joke. Well, Lang," he sneered, "I have to hand it to you. I didn't expect you to find a new boy toy the second you arrived in the Tianhe Kingdom." At this, Lang spun around and glared fiercely at Chulin. She warned him angrily, "You keep slinging mud in my direction. Do you think I'm just going to stand here and take it?" Chulin met her glare, raising his hands in a challenging gesture. "Oh, you're angry? Then do something about it." But before the argument could escalate, Qin Yue shook Chulin's hand off his shoulder. He then roared, "Why don't you shut your stupid mouth and what? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you make an entrance." Our hero didn't even give the villain a chance to spout more nonsense. It was like he hit the mute button. There was so much power in Qin Yue's voice that a startled Chulin actually took a step back. A dominating aura began to radiate from Qin Yue's entire body. Putting immense pressure on Chulin, he demanded, "And just who are you supposed to be?" Chulin glared back and shouted that he was a disciple of the extreme Sunset sect. but in the next moment he recoiled in terror when a huge, frightening phantom materialized behind Qin Yue. Qin Yue pointed a finger at Chulin and warned him in no uncertain terms. "If you say one more insulting word, I will personally turn you from a disciple into a corpse." Chulin's face went pale with fear. Stumbling backward, he wondered to himself, who is this kid? How can a mere level 1 spiritual realm practitioner exert such terrifying pressure? For him, a proud disciple of the extreme sunset sect, to be afraid of this nobody. What an absolute disgrace. To erase his shame, Chulin yelled that if Qin Yue kneeled and apologized right now, he might let him live. But Qin Yue's pride was on another level. Chulin charged forward with all his might, screaming, "Die!" Leng, who was watching this unfold, grew worried. She shouted for Qin Yue to be careful as Chulin was using a flame blade made from a 5th grade holy fire, but Qin Yue just smirked. Far from dodging, he didn't even budge. Chulin brought the flame blade down with full force onto Qin Yue's head and yelled triumphantly. But the very next moment, his triumphant expression froze on his face. He watched as his flame blade forged from a 5th grade holy fire began to tremble violently just inches from Qin Yue's head. Chulin's eyes went wide, his mouth hanging open in disbelief. Qin Yue looked down at the flickering flame at his feet. He then casually placed his foot on it and snuffed it out like a burnt-out matchstick. He then looked down on Chulin and asked with disdain, "Is this 5th grade holy fire of yours a cheap knockoff or something? Why is it so weak?" Oof, now that's the ultimate insult. Our boy just snuffed out a holy fire like he was blowing out a birthday candle. And with that, Chulin's career was over. Cancelled. Tada bye-bye. He gritted his teeth, completely baffled as to how his sacred flame could have been put out so effortlessly. Lin Yanhua and Elder Yu were also stunned, while Ling Qianhuang stared intently at Qin Yue. He realized that if a 5th grade holy fire was this terrified, it could only mean one of two things. Qin Yue's fire was a higher grade, or he possessed a natural fire body. Elder Yu's opinion of Qin Yue completely changed. Suddenly, Qin Yue's entire body began to tremble as if he were putting on a show. Chulin's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible!" he shouted. "How can a weak first-level spiritual realm cultivator suppress my fire? He must have used some cheap trick." Just then, a booming voice echoed from the doorway. Jiannan King emerged angrily, declaring, "That's enough! This is my mansion, not a common market." Upon seeing the king, Chulin immediately clasped his hands. He introduced himself politely. Ling Qianhuang also bowed respectfully, offering his greetings to the king. But the Jiannan King completely ignored them both, walking slowly and directly toward Qin Yue. Qin Yue looked at the old king and knew in his heart that the old man had definitely been watching everything from behind the door, only making his entrance now. What a schemer. The Jiannan King also looked at Qin Yue, thinking to himself that he never expected Qin Yue would possess such a high-grade holy fire in the great wilderness. His decision to choose Qin Yue had been absolutely correct. The king stroked his beard, a wide smile spreading across his face as he looked at Qin Yue. He called him younger brother, saying he had finally arrived and invited him to come inside. Qin Yue glanced back at Chulin with a smug smirk. Chulin was burning with anger and jealousy, but there was nothing he could do. He gritted his teeth, declared, "This ends here for today," and stormed off. As Ling Qianhuang followed the king inside, he glanced at Chulin's retreating back and inwardly cursed him for being such a stupid petty loser. After a short while, all the guests were gathered in the main hall. The atmosphere was a bit formal, but the old Jiannan King wore a mysterious smile. He started with some polite small talk, then told Qin Yue that he had summoned him for a specific reason. Qin Yue, being sharp, immediately caught on and asked directly, "Is this about the holy fire competition?" The king smiled and confirmed it, revealing that his Jiannan army had the right to one spot in the competition. "There's only one spot, and I want to give that golden opportunity to you, Qin Yue." Without a moment's hesitation, Qin Yue clasped his hands, bowed respectfully to the king, and accepted the offer. Seizing the opportunity, Lan Qianhua looked at Qin Yue with expectant eyes. She then made her offer, "Young Master Qin, would you like to join our Sacred Heart Palace?" Qin Yue confidently placed a thumb on his chest. He replied with style, "If I manage to win first place in the Holy Fire competition, then we can talk. There's no rush for now." Lan Qianhua understood immediately. This young man was not going to be easy to win over. She gave a slight nod, then turned to Elder Yu. Understanding the cue, Elder Yu reached into his pocket and pulled out a storage ring. He respectfully presented it to the Jiannan King, saying, "This is a small gift from the Sacred Heart Palace." The king shamelessly and happily accepted the gift, praising the generosity of the Sacred Heart Palace. Elder Yu then seized the chance to step forward and whisper in Lan Qianhua's ear. He explained that the boy was a favorite of the Jiannan King. He's special and possesses a high-grade unique fire. You should get closer to him and build a good relationship. In other words, you should flirt a little." Hearing this, Lan Qianhua blushed. Still, she mustered up the courage to take the opportunity. She stood up and called out to Qin Yue. With a charming smile, she mentioned that she hadn't visited this city in many years. "Would you have time to show me around?" Qin Yue agreed without hesitation. After all, who would turn down a chance to take a walk with such a beautiful woman? The Jiannan king, who was watching all of this unfold, understood the Sacred Heart Palace's entire honey trap scheme. He gave them his permission to go, but then the old king dropped a psychological bomb on Lan Qianhua. With a laugh, he reminded Qin Yue, "But remember to come back in time for dinner. Your little fiancée is cooking for you herself tonight." Oh ho ho! The old man played his trump card by mentioning the little fiancée. He completely shut down her advance. Poor Lan Qianhua must be thinking, "I'm out here trying to flirt with him, and his fiancée is already at home making him dinner." Qin Yue, upon hearing this, felt like he'd been struck by lightning. His eyes went wide, and his jaw dropped, leaving him utterly speechless. He instantly realized the clever old man was just messing with him for his own amusement. The color drained from Lan Qianhua's face as well. His work done, the Jiannan king stroked his beard, and with a smile told the two of them to run along. As Qin Yue and Lan Qianhua left, the king watched them go and began to ponder. He mused that the Sacred Heart Palace was using their holy maiden as bait to recruit talent. But he knew victory would be his thanks to the old saying, "The pavilions closest to the water are the first to enjoy the moonlight." His granddaughter Xiao Yue was the pavilion closest to Qin Yue's moonlight. At this thought, the king began to laugh, loudly, his cunning chuckle echoing throughout the mansion. The scene shifts to the main hall of the artifact refining sect, where the atmosphere was quite tense. Chulin of the extreme sunset sect was sitting in his seat waiting for Hong Fei. As soon as Hong Fei entered and saw Chulin, he immediately started flattering him. What a huge honor for their sect. Chulin himself has graced them with his presence. But Chulin, ignoring the flattery, got straight to the point. He wanted to know if Huang Fei was sure he'd win first place in the upcoming Holy Fire competition. Without a hint of fear, Huang Fei bowed proudly and guaranteed he would take first place. He boasted that with his master, the Qi immortal ancestor, and Chulin himself backing him, who could possibly defeat him. Man, look at that confidence. It's like the competition is already in the bag. But the worried look on Chulin's face told a different story. He was still preoccupied with Qin Yue. Popping Huang Fei's bubble, he told him to tone down the bragging. He'd seen a boy earlier that day who, despite only being at the first level of the spiritual realm, suppressed Chulin's holy fire as if it were a common flame. Hearing this, the ground fell out from under Huang Fei's feet. He was stunned, wondering what kind of hidden monster had just arrived in Tianhe City. Without wasting any time, Chulin waved his hands in the air, used a spell, and conjured an image of Qin Yue. The moment he saw the image, Huang Fei's eyes blazed with fury. He screamed in recognition. So it's him. Chulin just wanted to confirm if he knew the boy. Huang Fei, seething with disgust, asked, "What's that bastard's name?" Chulin asked in surprise, "Is this the same Qin Yue who killed Prince Lei Jianhe, the one the entire Divine Sword dynasty and the Immortal Clan are looking for?" Huang Fei immediately nodded. "Absolutely. It's that same village idiot who ran away and ended up here." Chulin was lost in thought. He recalled the rumors spreading around that Qin Yue had acquired some incredible treasure in the Great Wilderness. Now it seemed those rumors were true. Huang Fei's eyes went wide as he realized that the holy fire from the Great Wilderness might be in Qin Yue's possession. Chulin cut in, explaining the gravity of the situation. The fire Qin Yue possessed was of an even higher level than Chulin's own 5th grade fire. Competing against him in the tournament would be nearly impossible. Hearing this, Huang Fei broke into a cold sweat and pleaded in a panic. "Divine Servant Chulin, we can't let him win no matter what." Chulin, ever the strategist, began to scheme. He asked when Huang Fei's master was arriving. Upon learning he would be there by tomorrow, Chulin decided they would discuss the matter further after the master arrived. He then gestured for Huang Fei to leave. As soon as Huang Fei left, Chulin leaned back in his chair. But now, instead of fear, his eyes gleamed with greed as a devious plot began to form in his mind. If I can get my hands on that high-grade holy fire, the position of sect leader is mine for the taking. Chulin had already planned out his entire future. If he managed to snatch that fire from Qin Yue, then neither Huang Fei nor the Qi immortal ancestor would be able to touch him. It was the perfect plan, get what he wanted without any repercussions. Chulin was fully prepared to backstab his own allies. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to Tianhe City. Qin Yue and Leng Yanhuang were walking down a crowded street. Suddenly, the communication tablet Leng Yanhuang was holding began to flash. After reading the notification, she became lost in thought. She had just learned that this was none other than Qin Yue of the Qin family from the Divine Sword Dynasty. She immediately stopped him and expressed her deepest condolences for what had happened to his family. Qin Yue looked at Leng Yanhuang and remarked, "Miss Leng, you're very kind-hearted." Leng Yanhuang then placed a hand on her chest and gave Qin Yue her full assurance. She said that if he ever needed anything, the Sacred Heart Palace would fully support him. Qin Yue asked directly, "Even if it comes to war with the Immortal clan, will your offer still stand?" Leng Yanhuang replied without a moment's hesitation, "Absolutely. Our stance will remain firm. The Zhao Immortal clan is powerful, but our Sacred Heart Palace is not to be underestimated." Qin Yue looked deep into Leng Yanhuang's eyes. "Miss Leng, you are a good person. As for my revenge, that is something I will handle myself. But before I take my revenge, I will need some help from you and the Sacred Heart Palace." Leng Yanhuang's heart ached hearing his words, and something clicked in her mind. She was just about to say something, perhaps to confirm if he meant what she thought he did. But before a single word could escape her lips, Qin Yue gently placed a finger on them. The atmosphere suddenly turned romantic. Qin Yue gave her a meaningful look, a silent message that the wise need only a hint. Leng Yanhuang turned as red as a tomato. Afterwards, they both continued walking down the road in silence, as if nothing had just happened. But who can escape the public eye? As people passed by, they began to whisper. People were surprised recognizing the blushing beauty as the holy maiden of the Sacred Heart Palace. But the big question was, who was the white-haired guy with her? Someone pointed out, "Bro, that's the legendary guy who's seen with a new girl every day." First it was Princess Shoyu, then Dugu Wanner, and now the Holy Maiden. The crowd started buzzing that this guy was a real heartbreaker. Even the biggest playboys couldn't hold a candle to him. Soon enough, Qin Yue and Leng Xianhuang became the center of attention, with everyone staring their way. Qin Yue felt things getting a little awkward. He gave a slight cough, and without wasting a moment, he took Leng Yanhuang's hand and quickly led her away. "Let's go somewhere else," he said. The scene then shifts to another part of Tianhe City. Lei Pangji panted as he struggled to keep up with the long-haired Wang Shan from the Divine Merchant sect. Wang Shan was leading with an arrogant stride, forcing Lei Pangji to beg him to slow down, pleading that he was being left behind. Wang Shan glanced over and asked if Lei Pangji was truly sure he wanted to serve him. Like an obedient puppy, Lei Pangji practically started wagging his tail. He tearfully explained how he had worked like a dog for the artifact refining sect, but they had just tossed him aside like garbage. Now he was ready to be Wang Shan's most loyal servant. To prove his loyalty, Lei Pangji played his trump card, revealing that he had recently purchased over 10 slaves from the Cham Demon clan. At the mere mention of the Cham Demons, Wang Shan's interest was piqued, and his mind immediately began conjuring up some high-definition daydreams. Lei Pangji added that he had handpicked only the finest quality slaves, which was all it took for Wang Shan to completely melt. He immediately accepted Lei Pangji as his subordinate and ordered him to have all the Cham Demon slaves delivered to his mansion that very night. Suddenly, Lei Pangji's eyes landed on someone down the road. He stared in shock before crying out, "It's that bastard kid!" When Wang Shan looked closer, he saw Leng Yanhuang standing next to the boy. Though Wang Shan didn't recognize the Holy Maiden, he was completely captivated by her beauty. Lei Pangji added fuel to the fire, explaining that this was Qin Yue, the one who stole his slave, a slave who was just as beautiful as this young woman. He goaded Wang Shan, claiming that the boy had no respect for anyone. He only gets away with it because he's backed by the Jinan Mansion. Wang Shan boasted, puffing out his chest. "Huang Fei might be scared of them, but my sect is a different story. We don't care about any Jinan king." The two then decided it was... Wang Shan consoled Lei Pangji, assuring him that since he was her man, now she would definitely get his revenge. Meanwhile, Qin Yue and Li Qing He were taking a leisurely stroll when these two characters blocked their path. Lei Pangji, now full of confidence thanks to his new backer's power, smugly said, "Long time no see." Seeing this sycophant with a new master, Qin Yue taunted him directly. "Oh, I remember now. Last time you were with Hong Fei acting like his tamed wild boar. Looks like you've already switched owners." Lei Pangji's face twisted with rage. Wang Shan stepped in, declaring that Lei Pangji was her man now. "Hong Fei may not have had any power, but I do," she boasted. Li Qing He looked over at Qin Yue and remarked, "Looks like you've made a lot of enemies." Qin Yue stepped forward to face them both and asked, "So how do you plan on getting your revenge?" Wang Shan arrogantly pointed and proposed a bet. It was obvious she wanted her little follower back, and at the same time she shot Li Qing He a lecherous look. She declared that she wanted the little miss as well. "From this day on, she belongs to me." Hearing this, Li Qing He's eyes burned with fury. He unleashed his divine power, shouting that a lowly person like her would die by his hands today. But just as he moved to attack, Qin Yue stopped him. "Leave these two fools to me," he said. "I'll handle this." Qin Yue then casually clasped his hands and provoked Wang Shan. "And what if I refuse all bark and no bite?" Right, enraged Wang Shan went berserk. She gritted her teeth, screaming that she was going to kill him. Qin Yue clenched his own fist, his knuckles cracking ominously. He was ready. Wang Shan took a wide stance, and lightning and wind began to swirl violently around her. She thundered, "You're asking to die." She threatened to unleash her new mystic-level martial art on him, the Wind Thunder Sphere. Powerful gusts of wind and shockwaves surged toward Qin Yue. Even Lei Pengji stumbled under the immense pressure. Worried, Li Qing He asked if he should help, but Qin Yue stood firm and shook his head. Wang Shan unleashed all her power, screaming, "Die!" as she fired a massive energy projectile straight at Qin Yue. Faced with this massive attack, Qin Yue simply took a deep breath, absorbing all the surrounding spiritual energy into his body. He then unleashed his divine power, summoning his primordial spirit. A colossal, illusory image of the giant of Geras manifested behind him. The giant let out a deafening roar. An energy beam erupted from its mouth, completely overpowering Wang Shan's attack. The beam struck her like a bolt of lightning, sending her flying through the air. Her mouth hung open in a silent, pained scream as she crashed to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Lei Pengji was horrified when he saw his new master Wang Shan get knocked unconscious from a single blow. He clutched his cheeks and screamed, "Oh my gosh!" The massive cloud of dust from the impact slowly began to settle. Qin Yue let out a long breath and gestured toward the unconscious Wang Shan, confirming that this little chapter was now officially closed. It was all over. Nearby, Li Qing He's eyes were still wide with astonishment. He couldn't believe his eyes. Wang Shan, who was already at the 4th level of the spiritual realm and even knew a low-grade mystic martial art, had been taken down by just one of Qin Yue's attacks. His mind was racing, trying to figure it out. Qin Yue's attack was definitely no ordinary skill. It had to be a mystic-level martial art. A heavy silence fell over the area, but for Lei Pengji it was the calm before the storm. Radiating a cold, dangerous aura, Qin Yue slowly walked toward the trembling man and made it crystal clear that it was his turn now. Seeing Qin Yue's menacing aura, Lei Pengji completely lost his nerve. He trembled like a leaf in the wind and collapsed to the ground. Without a shred of shame, he began groveling on the floor, begging for his life. He immediately declared that if Qin Yue spared him, he would hand over all his wealth, every last cent. He's ready to do it. Upon hearing the words, "all the wealth," Qin Yue's ears perked right up. When Lei Pengji nodded his head to confirm, Qin Yue invited the holy maiden, saying, "Come on, let's go inspect his wealth." And to give him a little motivation, he landed a powerful kick right on Lei Pengji's backside, sending him forward to act as their guide. And man, look at him go. The moment he was kicked, he took off like a Formula One car. In no time, the three of them arrived at Lei Pengji's mansion. But when Qin Yue took a look around the mansion, his mood soured the moment he saw what was inside. He told Lei Pengji in no uncertain terms that the garbage he was showing them wasn't nearly enough to pay for his life. Seeing the fear of death, Lei Pengji started to sweat bullets. When Qin Yue clenched his fist and gave a final warning, Lei Pengji finally broke and revealed his true treasure, a secret stock of slaves. Qin Yue's eyes turned cold and he ordered Lei Pengji to take them to the location at once. Stumbling over, Lei Pengji went to a wall and pressed a brick, which opened a secret door. The moment it opened, a rotten stench poured out from within. A gust of stinking air blew out, forcing Leng Xiangwang to cover her nose because the smell was absolutely nauseating. Qin Yue looked at Lei Pengji with utter disgust, thinking that the heart of this fat man must be truly black to keep humans in such a place. He dragged Lei Pengji by the collar and, asking the holy maiden to brace herself, pulled him inside. The scene within was nothing short of hellish. There was filth everywhere, with cages holding slaves who were living in conditions worse than any animal. Women and children of the Yao tribe were suffering there, many of whom had been tortured and permanently crippled. One slave reached his hand out of a cage trying to grab Lei Pengji, while cursing that just as he had destroyed their family, he would never die a peaceful death. Hearing this, Lei Pengji started backing away in fear, but Leng Xianghuang's anger was now completely out of control. She declared that a monster like him didn't deserve forgiveness. It wasn't even a question. Sensing the heated atmosphere, Lei Pengji started pleading again. He promised that he would change his ways. Qin Yue was angrily dragging him forward when his eyes suddenly fell on a cell up ahead where 2 or 4 demons were chained. When Qin Yue confirmed that these were also slaves, Lei Pengji saw an opportunity and immediately started his sales pitch. He told them it was high-quality merchandise and an absolutely fresh batch. A devilish smile spread across Qin Yue's face. It came across as if he were impressed. Lei Pengji felt his pitch had hit the mark and thought that perhaps his life would be spared. Qin Yue held up a hand and assured him that if he promised not to kill him, he could go. Lei Pengji's joy knew no bounds. Just as he gave his thanks and turned to flee, the scene took a brutal twist. Leng Xianghuang's hand shot out like a sharp blade. It sliced through the air and a moment later pierced straight through Lei Pengji's chest. Talk about instant karma delivery, no waiting period. Lei Pengji's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. With his dying breath, he looked at Qin Yue with a questioning gaze. Qin Yue explained with a very cool head that he had promised he wouldn't kill him, but he never said that Miss Leng wouldn't. Dude found a loophole and basically hacked the system. Leng Xianghuang retracted her bloodied hand. There was only hatred in her eyes. According to her, for those who enjoy torturing others, death alone is not punishment enough. Lei Pengji's lifeless body fell to the ground and his story came to an end. Leng Xianghuang then asked what would become of the slaves. Qin Yue decided that he would call the king of Zhenan to make proper arrangements for these poor people. The holy maiden cleaned her hands and agreed that this was the best option. As soon as they were done, the backup team entered. In a short while, the entire army from the king of Zhenan's mansion arrived, and the cleanup operation began. Xiao Yu wasted no time taking command, ordering her troops to rescue the poor slaves and get them out of there first. Then she saw Lei Pengji's corpse on the ground. When she did, her anger didn't subside, it flared up even more. She felt that a simple death was like a reward for this fat monster. Real justice would have been served only if he were imprisoned here and made to feel all the pain he inflicted on others. But Qin Yue had a slightly bigger vision. He looked into Xiao Yue's eyes and explained the harsh truth that killing just one Lei Pengji wasn't going to stop the slave trade. He reminded her that the mission wasn't just about revenge, but about completely uprooting this filth from the Tianhai dynasty. After dropping that bit of wisdom, Qin Yue laid out his exit strategy. He stated clearly that he was leaving the rest of the work to the two ladies because he wouldn't be able to make it to dinner tonight. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yue became emotional. She was crushed. Stomping her feet in anger, she shouted that Qin Yue was a Class A idiot. She fumed that he had no idea how much hard work, sweat, and tears went into preparing that food. She warned him that she wouldn't let him off the hook so easily next time. On the other hand, Leng Xianghuang was watching everything unfold while doing some different calculations. Seeing Qin Yue and Xiao Yue bickering, she analyzed in her mind that their relationship hadn't yet reached the level of deep romance. In other words, there's still a job opening. It's time to apply. Then Xiao Yue's attention fell on Leng Xianghuang and she looked surprised. She came closer, patted her shoulder, and asked, "Sister Leng, why is your face suddenly as red as a tomato?" Leng Xianghuang suddenly got flustered. Waving her hands frantically, she started insisting that she was absolutely fine. Maybe it was the heat, or maybe she was just tired, but Li Qing He simply couldn't process what was happening. Lost in thought, the holy maiden finally began to wonder what Qin Yue was planning and why she felt so flustered. What was going on? This wasn't just a minor issue. The whole situation felt incredibly suspicious.